civic group or government?
Does everything that
I understand go to civic, I can hear it there.
Since we have a lot of citizens here to hear us, let's move the minutes to the end of the meeting because it's going to be done. Accounts payable were provided along with the expenditure report, I believe. And so if you have any questions, probably. No. And the warrants are being circulated to sign. Revenue is a board and here somewhere. Yeah, it's right here. That is the payroll. Yeah. So we are down to lunch report, and Gail, I saw here at some point. Gail, are you finding somewhere? I saw it. All right.
Oh, Nellie.
Can you help us with the school lunch report? We have a few months here. Documents of November, December's, and then I'll explain the additional document. It's the same report that set up that you've had in the past. Shows the revenue, expenses for December. At the top, it's summer shares because we received the money, and that's technically from a few months in the summer in August because the school year closes in June, but the money comes in after from the state. When you go down to total revenue on the far right, you see $41,383.01. That's from the state. It's September and November's payments. To refresh your memory, last month I said that for whatever reason we were notified a few times that they deposited the September amount in and then they took it out and they said that they would give it to us at a later date. And then we received another email saying it would be later, and now it's here. The third document you asked at the last meeting to have some information in regards to our spending. So from the day of school starting, it's entitled Pioneer Valley Regional School District Food Service Expenditures August 2017 through December 2017 in your packet. So the top, we categorized it. Top is salaries. Year-to-date column is what we've spent so far. The encumbrance column is the remainder of their salaries, which will be paid out through the school year. And the balance is on the far right. And it's in parentheses, and you're used to thinking that that's a deficit. It is not. Next category is expenditures. So in the same format, the column is year-to-date expenditures, and it's categorized by food and supplies, by site, each of the 5 schools. Encumbrance we really don't have any known encumbrances because we buy the food as we need it.
Which one? Warwick?
Right. There is one for Warwick. And then the third column, it's the balance. $41,856.39 is the balance. It's not a negative. If you turn,
It's the balance of expenditures, the total, or the total plus the encumbrance to Warwick.
yes,
Right.
yes,
For expenditures, right?
Yes.
So it's has nothing to do with the salaries at the top, it's a separate
Correct.
category.
correct. So if you turn it over,
Yep.
the revenues, this is the money received to date. Well, not January, but December, because we did this, we worked on this and had it done at the end of January. So I'm going to take you to the bottom of the page, year-to-date transactions at the very bottom, and you see a total. $106,771.97. And then you subtract the $66,406.47 spent on salaries to date, and you subtract the $39,970.68 spent on expenditures to date. And we are 394,000, wait, excuse me. Wouldn't that be nice?
Good job, Gail.
$394.82 to the good.
I just have to give you, exactly. Thank you so much, Gail.
Don't stop now.
This is really.
I know, well, it's 3 months. But you wanted to know some information, I did too. So Brenda and I worked on this and categorized it and came up with the total. We also had the second half, which every school district doesn't have each time, because the last 2 times I went through a food service review, we did not have a financial review. We did this time. And it was scheduled for one of the snow days, and it was rescheduled by the state, and they came last Friday and spent the entire day here with everybody that has their hands in the piece of making food service happen financially, and there are a lot of us that do that. He'll have a corrective action plan because they need to. He has some suggestions for us, and he'll put that in writing. He said don't expect it until 3 or 4 weeks, but I'm sure that there'll be many things that we can do and do more efficiently, and there are going to be some things, because the way our district is set up, that will be a challenge or won't be able to happen. And then I'll have a certain amount of time, just like I did for the first review, to write a response to the corrective action plan in the security portal for the DESE.
Thank you so much, Gail.
That's
Thank you,
very
Gail.
good.
Question?
The plan?
Yeah.
Can I
Go
ask
for
her a
it.
question?
Go for it.
So I didn't use my calculator, but I just guesstimated that on the report, like
Which one, Peggy?
on revenues,
Yes.
like the first 10 or so lines there, thinking that that would tie in to our December total revenue, and it's clearly higher on this report. Does this report reflect the claims due?
So, Gail, you want me to answer that?
Sure.
So, what happens is that,
I don't have a financial.
so what Pam does, all the reconciliation, and what they do is when they come in, when they get the deposit, they put it in that month. It doesn't, it's rarely is it in the same month or the right month. It doesn't come in regularly in that way, so that's why I don't think it'll ever tie back together, because when it comes in, she posts it. Regardless of it was 2 months prior
So
to.
we kind of need to remedy that. If we're
And I
gonna-
think that's one of the recommendations that the auditor's gonna come up with. There are some significant ones that we can improve our financial base at this, and part of it, I'm thinking he's gonna reconcile that we shouldn't have quite so many people dealing with the money. So you're right, but until we get that report, he gave Pam some recommendations that she's gonna try to implement, but I think when we get the report, just like the other audit, we're gonna have to go through it and change our structure, because you're right.
Right, because we've been using this as
Correct.
accurately reflecting where we're at, and it's,
Right.
it's not.
Right, it's not.
David?
I think it may be. The discrepancy would be, this report does not include the whole year to date. It's from August to now. So the revenues wouldn't line up necessarily, because there's a month not included here that would be reflected in this report.
What month is that?
Well, I got the December one here in my hand, but I expect these have been done monthly from the beginning of the fiscal year, whereas this new report doesn't have July.
Well,
And
there
we
wouldn't
talked
be
to-
any revenue in July.
Well, but if it included it
There
and in the heading, and there wasn't any revenue, we'd know that, but we don't know that because
Right.
we don't have the
But this is
information.
higher.
We talked to him about, we had a conversation about how to post the revenue when it comes. And he'll put that in writing, because we don't post it until we actually have it in hand or in the bank account. And he said we should be posting it anyway, which
Right.
I have a hard time wrapping my head around, and he'll put that in writing and
Well, I
explain
mean,
why.
I
And
can
he
wait
said
till
call
that. I
him
just-
anytime, so I have a good connection now to help line things up.
Well, thank you for this.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Is there any other questions of the committee? Thank you very, very much.
I just want to say, Gail, when I looked at the reports, it's just such a relief to see things heading in such a solidly correct direction.
Hopefully it will stay that.
Thank you.
We hear you.
Treasurer.
Okay. We are now to appearances, and we have asked Mike Sullivan from Gil Montague to come and discuss the grant that we got with him and how we proceed from there. So, Mike, if you want to come up, and maybe the committee can, when you get seated, introduce themselves so you have a clue of who these names and faces are. Jim, would you start?
Oh, Jim Bell, Bernardston. Sorry, it woke me up.
Gotta do that once in a while.
John Rogers, Leiden.
Bill Walker from Northfield.
I'm Robin Woodwall from the Hi.
Sharon Fontaine from Leiden.
Hello. Hi, I'm David Young from Warwick.
Laura McCray from Warwick.
Hi, Michael.
And I'm Cashier from Northfield.
Martha Morse from Warwick.
Ian Hardy, I'm the recording secretary.
Peggy Keppel from Lyden. Hi.
Deb Gilbert from,
From state now.
Bernardston.
Jeannie Milton from Bernardston, you met before.
Yes, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you also.
I'm Elko T from Northfield.
Nice to see you. I have a handout that's coming around. I hope I made enough copies, so.
We can share.
we can share.
Oh,
Karen.
I think
No, there's
they're
a
coming
more
from
bus
somewhere.
driver.
Oh, okay. In that case, we don't have to work. Awesome.
Ms. Renfro
Forgot that.
Gilbert.
Go for it.
All right, well, you have a full agenda, so I won't try and belabor anything. The main thing I want to do is make sure people understand the grant that we've all acquired. So the first page is an overview of things that I wanted to touch on, and then behind that is the grant application. And everything about the grant is here. There's nothing else to it so far. The first paragraph, the first page kind of outlines the proposal, and basically what we said to the state is that there are serious challenges in Franklin County, fiscal challenges that make the sustainability of our districts difficult, and certainly to continue to offer to promote excellence and equity in our classrooms is difficult. And so basically not just Franklin County, but a lot of Western Mass increasingly has more educational capacity than it has students, and with funding so tied to students, it's making life difficult for a lot of our districts. And so this grant is an opportunity to look for two kinds of things. One of them is financial efficiencies, and the other is we want to look for opportunities to improve education. And so in talking with Ruth and with Rick Martin from the tech school, we thought there might be some opportunities for us to do some things jointly, either involving all three of us together or in different combinations among the three of us. And so to get a grant, you have to be specific. And so we had to give them some ideas about where this might go. And I think, if you don't mind, I'll list for everybody here what's on page 5, where it says measures of success. There's pages prior to that talk about specific costs and so on, but I think this is a good thing to kind of summarize the spirit of what we want to do here. And there's 5 things listed here. The first one says, a short-term plan exists for shared student programs, courses, or activities between Franklin County Tech School and Turners Falls High School for the, actually that should say the 18-19 school year. So Franklin Tech's only 1.5 miles or even under that from Turners Falls High School, and they're interested in offering more foreign languages, more advanced courses, and we're having a hard time budgeting to keep those kinds of things. So it seems like a natural thing for us to look for connections with them. We also share some athletic teams together. So part of this grant would pay for a bus to bring kids back and forth during the course of the day next fall. To what end, we don't know yet, but we've got grant money to make some of that happen. Yes?
I hear the word bus, and I just think to myself, in the future, would we be looking to have that reimbursed in part by the state if this were to become a long-term solution?
Yeah, possibly.
Since that would be part of regionalization, I would assume.
Yeah, I think we could make a case that it's helping with regionalization, and maybe we get 75% back or not. But
if they're ever offering 75% again.
Yeah, right.
Well.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just, first thing that popped in.
Sure. The second thing that the grant suggests is a short-term plan for shared services, not programs with kids, but shared services between Pioneer Valley and Gilmontague. Again, that could take effect, probably after July 1st of this year. And I'll talk some more about some ideas about that in a second. The third thing says a high-quality, detailed, actionable study is produced containing cost-benefit analysis of longer-term consolidation or regionalization options among the 3 districts. So we want to bring in someone that does this kind of work for a living and have get input from all of the stakeholders among all our different communities, and have them produce some options about what we might do that may be more ambitious and longer term, but nothing in the immediate future. And then the fourth thing says, a series of well-attended public meetings and stakeholder planning sessions occur, where the outcome is a plan for shared services and programs among the 3 districts. And then finally, the fifth thing says the civic leaders, school committees, district administrations, school faculties and staffs, parents and other stakeholders of the 6 communities and 3 districts involved establish strong and trusting working relationships that provide a foundation for the consideration of continued cooperative undertakings. I think when I look at what's going on in the Berkshires, they try to come up with a really ambitious plan for super regionalization, whatever. And then when they started talking specifics, the whole thing seemed like it kind of unraveled a little bit. And I think the lesson for me from that is that it's very hard to go from not working together at all to trying to do something very ambitious. And I think what we've been thinking about is let's do some things together and see what that feels like and get to know each other a little bit and kind of go from there. So that's kind of the spirit of what we're trying to do here. Some short-term, lower-hanging fruit and then some longer-term things. I can answer questions you might have about this, the specifics about things that we could fund, like consultants and attorneys, facilitation of meetings. And then on page 7, I use color to kind of differentiate the things in black are the things that would be a process for all 3 districts, the tech school, Gilmontague, and Pioneer. The things in red are about Pioneer and Gilmontague getting together, and the things in blue are about the tech school and Gilmontague working together. So to get things started, we wanted to do a couple things straight away. One is to start thinking about putting together I was going to say RFP, don't want to use the jargon too much, or request for a proposal to get a consultancy going. And the other thing is we'd like to start a steering committee, and I talked about this with my school committee on Tuesday night. What we thought would be a good steering committee for the grant would be the superintendents of the 3 districts, and then 1, possibly 2 school committee members of each of the districts. And that wouldn't be decision making, that'd be just to kind of get a process going to get things started. And we even wanted to suggest a date of next Thursday, just to get the conversation going. If you pick a person or 2 and that doesn't work, we could change the date. Or if you really don't think that's a good structure, we could talk about that. But those were a couple of specific things that we wanted to suggest. So that's a lot of information there in that grant, but I didn't want to read it to you or anything like that. So you've got that. I could move on to the grant, to the second item I have on my memo there, if you like, or answer questions.
Why don't you go ahead? I
Okay.
think this is going to be a lot for people to digest.
Sure.
Well, we did see you.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
When we met to partner with you,
Yep.
we did all get to
Yep.
see the
Right.
Yeah. Okay, great. So the second thing is, my understanding's been that Pioneer's been considering a shared superintendency and business manager arrangement for the future. And I just wanted to just give you my 2 cents, and this isn't from my school committee, this is just from me about, if you wanted to entertain that with us, with myself and our business manager, Joanne Blyer. Clearly, that's really complicated, and it would take all kinds of understandings among everybody to explore that. So I'm not silly enough to think that, we would just decide something like that quickly, or I don't even really know if it's a great idea for all the parties involved. But I did want to put some specifics to it for what that might look like in terms of dollars. So there's a table there, and what I am showing, and it's definitely for illustration purposes only, I've written down that currently my salary and our business manager's salary equal the amount you see under FY18 of $246,000. And then Superintendent Miller's salary is there, and there's a total. And then what I am suggesting is, and maybe you do this with Terry Thomas or somebody else, but it would seem to me what you're likely to be looking at is in the next column, some kind of pay increase for the people now working across districts. So I threw in as a placeholder a 10% increase. And then you see the total salary for those people working across districts. And then in the next 2 columns, I tried to show what a breakout might look like for those salaries. And if it was just based on enrollment of students proportionally, looking at Gilmontague's current enrollment joined with Pioneer's, we'd take up 52.3% of the cost, and Pioneer would be 47.7%. So I applied those rates to the salaries of the shared administrators. And then when you break that out, you can see, compared to the status quo of costs right now, what the difference would be. And there'd be a significant cost savings to Gilmontague by sharing the 2 of us, and there would be a much smaller cost savings to Pioneer. And then I think what, just for my selfish purposes, thinking of Gil Montague, what we would almost certainly need to do would be to hire some kind of additional administrator to do work of curriculum and instruction, because I'm kind of doubling doing that work in our district right now. So I just wanted to lay that out there for your thoughts. The third thing I wrote down is the types of additional services, and this would be independent of even thinking about shared superintendency, that we might start exploring together, that being Gil, Montague, and Pioneer, or Pioneer and even Tech School, or the three of us. Technology and student data director roles, director of curriculum and instruction. I know right now the collaborative CES is working on a project to have, I think it's Hadley, Hatfield, and Granby have a shared curriculum director, so they're trying to put something together. So this kind of thing is going on in lots of different places. Food service director, we have one who's full-time, and facility manager, we have one who's full-time. They might have capacity to work somewhere else as well. And then getting closer to student programming, we now have a half-time librarian at our secondary level, and I think you all might be in that situation as well. Sharing people like that, sharing occupational therapists or physical therapists. We had a very hard time filling a part-time psychologist role this year, so if you had a need like that, that's the kind of thing we could explore. And finally, in addition to new programmings, our pupil services director has been exploring what it would take to have an in-house autism program and also a language-based learning disabilities program. And so those are the kinds of programs shared among 2 or 3 local districts we might want to think about together. So those are the things I wanted to share with you this evening.
You had that at the elementary level at one point.
I'm sorry?
I said, I know you had that at the elementary level at one point,
What's that?
an in-house autism program.
Perhaps we did. Yeah, I don't know that's how recent that's been.
I know you did.
Okay. Hopefully it pre-exists me.
Well, I worked on it.
Yeah. I just don't want to look like I don't know what I'm
Like you
talking
don't
about.
remember.
It was a while
I'm
ago.
hoping that was more than 4 or 5 years
Yeah,
ago.
it
So
was more than 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
But I know that you guys had that as a district.
I'm off the hook then.
Questions from the committee?
Yeah.
Yes, Sue?
I just appreciate you putting stuff down. You know, it's something we're all thinking about and trying to imagine and explore and don't even know how to really frame or ask questions, because at least I'm struggling with it. So it's helpful to just see some parameters and some ideas.
Right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. The risky side of that is that people take it as that this is a plan or whatever. But I always feel like it's hard to advance the conversation without something to work from. So.
I agree.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else from anyone? I know we're all going to have multitudes of questions as soon as you leave, but we'll give you a call.
All right. Just down the road.
He proposed a November.
It's right there at the
Yeah,
bottom.
a February 1st.
February
1st.
February
So-
1st, we,
So we are so meetinged out right now, but what's on that date?
that's a Thursday.
That's
There is
big
nothing
week,
on it.
right?
Budget
Yeah, there
negotiations.
is.
It's 2:30 in the afternoon.
There's a budget
So
and
that's-
negotiation.
So what we
Oh,
need
it's
to
February
see is, connect with Ruth if you have an availability on the 1st.
2:30 in the afternoon.
And 2:30 in the afternoon. There's some of us that will be working and can't make it. 2:30. There's other people. 2:30 is the date, the
Says right
time,
here.
the time and the date.
It's on the bottom of this.
Bottom of the first
got it.
I'll connect with you, Michael.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
yeah,
All
so
right.
that's the easiest
Yeah.
way, I think, to have it, is just connect with Ruth and then she'll.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
And
This
where
was
we,
really
where are
well
you
done.
meeting? Really
I
well.
don't know. We haven't met here yet. We can pick a location. You know, we can.
Okay.
I can travel.
All
Rotate.
right.
So, yeah.
I'll let the two of you duke it out.
Okay.
How's that?
Yeah.
All right. Terrific.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see all this.
I love it in black and white. Yes.
Thanks a lot.
Very nice. All right, thank you.
Thank you
Do
very
you want
much.
to move Steve up since it's kind of
Yeah.
related?
And we have another visitor who's way at the bottom with your appearances. But Steve Hammond, if you would like to come up, you are back there somewhere.
Everything is so interconnected right now.
And I think these two people are sort of working along the same lines. As you can see from this, he's Assistant Director of the Massachusetts Association of Rural Schools.
Regional.
Regional schools, I mean, yeah.
Not the world yet.
And and he would like to talk to us. I think Sue initially reached out to him, and she has some questions and stuff, hopefully, and we'll lead you along, or you lead us along.
Well, good. Just to introduce, I'm Steve Hemmon. I'm the Assistant Executive Director for the Regional School. I was the Executive Director for from 08 to 15, then I went back in 15-16 in Narragansett interim year, involved in getting the funding for the new school, and then I thought I was going to retire, and they said, will you come back as the assistant? So I did. And we also, we have a consulting group that we head up as well, that we provide services to regional schools or any schools that need some services, update regional agreements. We do also deal with their strategic planning. And we've also done combination work with NESDEC about districts looking ahead and trying to find out what's going to happen. So I know at the last meeting that Glenn Kuchar recommended you contact me, which you did, as well as Jay Sullivan said contact me. So I've been involved with regional schools in Massachusetts, as well as I spent 5 years in Vermont in supervisory unions, so I'm well aware of that. And consider I get the phone calls on how do we operate and what are the different things we need to do. So you're a member of the association, I'm glad to come and work with you. One of the things I think Mike proposed to you that I think is what's happening across the state, especially starting, and I live in Westminster heading west, is the declining enrollments. And the issues of your resources, money from this, is not going up. You're pretty much going to be held, Chapter 70 is going to be held, you're not going to see increases, and the only thing the governor put in is $20 a student. You might see a little bit more. We're constantly fighting on regional transportation as well as homeless transportation, all of those things, trying to get those up. So you'll be getting some emails from us saying, please contact your reps and say we got to get the money in there when it goes. So that's what we're trying to do. One of the things I do want to say to you, with your superintendent leaving, and she's also a combination business manager and superintendent, you really need to now this has got to be, in my opinion, to you, a recommendation priority, because we've talked about there's authorization for a interim superintendent, and that has to be top of your list, because you need to have a superintendent on board July 1. It's a requirement of the state, because that person is the one that does appointments and hiring. Also, your business operations. I don't know, Ruth, if you want to mention now that what you gave out to the things on the different jobs. I was asked, I think, Sue, you asked me for it, VARS did years ago a study with the Department of Education on a grant, is looking at a central office. And I think the sheet you might have in front of you, across the top is all the functions, and then down the side you list who the people are and who does what function. And so you're going to have to start making some decisions on who's going to do what functions, and so you know who's doing the functions in your district to do that. We're glad to give you some advice and some direction what to do, and even need job descriptions or something different. We can get others from other districts. So I think you need to move in that direction rather quickly, what you're going to have in place. This is the end of January, and usually when you're starting, you usually start in November on that one. So you'll look, hopefully you can find a retired, or not retired, but a regional superintendent that had experience in regions. Operating in a town is different than a region. I spent 15 years in Norwood as the business administrator and assistant superintendent in a municipal, and then I spent about 20 years in region, so I know how they operate. And so regions are a little bit more complicated. You have 4 towns and how the relationship with those towns and how that operates. And a region being an entity unto itself and all the responsibilities that go with that. So you need someone that needs to know what they're doing on that one. I know you've been talking to Glenn. I think you put Glenn usually has a list of people that might be interested.
Yeah, I think he's waiting for a job description.
Yeah.
So he can't post it without a job description.
Okay. There are job descriptions that we can, if you need some help getting, we can with these 80 regions, they're all with us, so we can get job descriptions. And actually, I go back to Narragansett where I was and get a job description there that we used. Recently hired the superintendent that replaced me when I left. My job was a 1-year interim. My worst fear is I wind up 2 years in interim. I only wanted 1 year. So again, that's what you need. Also, you got to figure out your business operations. I do want to say that what Mike's proposed, and also I know Mahar has done some overtures as well as, I think Mohawk has some ideas. I think it's an idea you're going to need to look at, and I think you need to be careful when you're getting into it. So you carefully, what does that mean? What's the shared services? And what the three, when I was just saying to Mike, there are 3 regions involved. Franklin, Pioneer, and Gilmontague. So you've got into how those regions, you look at the agreements, and then you can make municipal intermunicipal agreements between you. It doesn't affect your regions, but you can decide if you want to share a superintendent, or you want to share however you want to do that. Maureen Marshall, she was superintendent in Quabbin, and then she was also superintendent in North Middlesex for a period of time. And they had a 20-page intermunicipal agreement. So I just got that today because I'm working with another district on it. So these things can happen, and they don't tie you forever. And that's, but once you start changing your agreements and tying agreements, then you're getting tied in for a long time. So you got to look at all of those aspects, and we'd be glad to work with you on that. So, and I talk to the Department of Education all the time, so, on how we deal with the regional agreements and so forth doing that, so. But I think the thing you need to do is really start moving that. I would put that, getting that in an interim and business operations at the top of your list. Anything else I can do to help you?
Nice to know that whatever we decide doesn't have to be cast in stone. It can be just a short term or whatever.
Yeah. You could set up with what Mike was proposing here in the other district, you could set up and do a 3-year municipal agreement. And then at the end of 3 years, you decide, do we want to continue or do we want to change? And again, though, it depends how you're going to do it. And if you do that, I got to tell you, it's a different way of doing these, because you're not, if you're sharing a superintendent, or sharing a business manager, or sharing a curriculum, they're not going to be in your district every day the school's in session. There's going to be some sharing where they're going to be. You just have to set up as a process, and we've gotten discussions that if something happens, what's the line of operations, who do they go to? And so that can be set up. With technology nowadays, it can be very clearly, easily done, but you have to know it's going to be a different process. And again, you can't expect that superintendent you're going to share to be at all of your activities like a full-time in your district. I mean, I was out 3-4 nights a week, doing that, athletic events or other meetings and so forth. It changes. So again, you've got to look at it very carefully. I think it's a good idea, and you should start looking at this, because it's not, I don't see anything getting any easier. Now, the only thing is, in case the state gets more revenue, we'll have to see, but you have to, you're on, all districts here have to plan out how, without any additional money, what are you going to do with what you have?
That's the problem. If we had lots of money, we wouldn't have the problems.
Well, I know, we wouldn't. If I could predict cost base, what your costs are going to be for a year, I'd be a multi-millionaire. It paid me to do that, but it doesn't happen that way. So I think you're on the track, but I think you need to you got to make some decisions quickly, and you can't go with it. So I would suggest, if you need some help on a job description for a superintendent, that's got to be done now, like tomorrow and the next day, and get it to Glenn. But you've also got to decide as a committee, how are you going to now, what are you going to do with your business operations when that Ruth has done both? I did both at Narragansett, but they changed it after I left. It's now a superintendent and business manager. So that's what I think you need to get that decision now very quickly.
We have an advertisement out for a business manager now, and hopefully we'll get some bites.
Unfortunately, I got to tell you, hiring business managers these days is very difficult to find them. I mean, they're out, and also the state hasn't made it easy for people to get their licenses as business managers either. And maybe there's good and bad point. There's a lot of good having training, but yet some people that are in business that want to come in, they're working full time in the business. How do they get to go through all the coursework and everything else to get the license? So that's a real issue. And the training. Working in a business operation and coming into a school operation is quite different.
2 different things.
What?
2 different things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the backgrounds help, but it changes. I've mentored 4 business managers over the years since I've been doing this, so I know what, and they've been in business coming into a school environment, so. I used to get phone calls for 2 or 3 years afterwards, so.
Does any of the committee have any questions to ask? You feel this was, Sue.
So I just want to plan next steps really concretely. So there is a interim hiring committee that's already been given permission by this committee to go forward.
Correct.
So we just need to get the job description to Glenn, so it ends up posted on the Massachusetts Association of School Committee site.
Exactly.
The other thing you could probably send is to MASS Tom Scott and send it to him, and they might know, they have a list of retired superintendents may be interested. The one thing you did tell me, you said you're looking for 1 to 2 years. Retirees, remember, there's a limitation on them. They can, within a calendar year, I might as well explain it to you now, so because I have to live with it, so I know. The limitations are based on a calendar year, January 1st, December 31st. If you're a retiree and you're taking a pension from teacher retirement, you're limited to 950 hours in a year, and your difference in what they have to do is they have to calculate if you had stayed in the position and they take your salary and add whatever the Social Security increase every year, so what would your salary be? And then they subtract that from your, then they subtract your pension from that, and that difference is what you can earn. Now, what can happen is for here, over a fiscal year, you've got 2 calendar years, so the person usually can get the 980 for the first 6 months, another 980 salary-wise usually works out. But when you get into the second year, they've already used up that time and money, so you have to be careful. Now, you can go for a waiver if you have a reason that you need to have that person in second, but they're very difficult granting waivers now. It has to be a real solid reason why you do that.
I was going to say, do we have any contact to those lists in New Hampshire and Vermont?
If you want, if they're retirees.
Because I know that when you retire out of one state as a teacher or an administrator, sometimes you are a little more flexible working in a state that you did not retire out
Right.
of.
Well, you can go, if you work in New Hampshire and you work in New Hampshire, and you can come to Massachusetts, but you have to have a Massachusetts active license.
Correct.
That's the issue. And if they do come, then they're not limited because their pension's out of state, there's no
Exactly.
limitation.
So then that would be
Okay.
2 years without looking for a waiver because it's somebody who would
Right.
just have to get transfer the licensure into the Massachusetts system.
Well, they won't transfer, there's no transfer.
There's
They
no-
have it or they
well,
don't have it.
Okay.
And if someone comes from, here's one thing, someone comes
So
from out of
there's
state.
no reciprocity at the administrative
No.
level?
If Massachusetts, you come from out of state, you say New Hampshire, you want to get a Mass license, you're going to take the MTEL test. There's no getting
Right.
out of it. So, again, it's not, 30, 40 years ago it was real easy, now today it's not. So you get that. Again, you can do that, I mean, you just have to look at it and take a look, but also the reason.
They take everything else, it's just the MTELs.
Excuse me?
They'll take all the other pieces, it's just the
Yeah,
MTELs.
yeah, but you have to have it, then you have to pass the MTELs, but there's certainly still requirements that they're gonna make sure, I mean, it's not, I deal with, I've done licensure and dealing with that, you'd be surprised what they come up with, with that. But again, I don't belay the point that you can, that's one way to go, if you can find somebody that wants to do that. The only reason I say Massachusetts, and you bring somebody in that knows what's going on in Massachusetts.
Yeah, the rules.
Again, because when that person comes in, you want them to hit the ground running. It's not like, all of a sudden, I can learn it for a year, and then I'm gonna be great for my next 2 years.
No,
No.
that's all right.
Not easy. But I give, yeah, okay.
Oh, sorry. I think that I heard you say that one of the main considerations in combining staff, professional staff, would be the allotment of time,
Mhm.
of course, and who they report to, what their exact functions are.
All of those would be settled out, and you would do an intermissible agreement. You'd have to settle that out, what the anticipations are, time-wise, and realizing there can be emergencies, things change, obviously, but you'd have to settle that all out. And you have to settle out who are they going to be primarily employed by, and then the other, so they're employed by, just hypothetical, is Mike still here?
Yeah.
Still
Okay.
Okay.
Let's just say
He's
Mike,
taking notes.
let's just say Mike was the part you did with Gil Montague, and he became the superintendent for both. He's employed by one district, so he'd be employed, the other district then would pay that money to him. And he needs to state that, because you can't, the part-time issues, you've come by 2 districts employed at the same time. You are employed, but who's gonna pay the salaries? You got health insurance and all those issues you gotta deal with, plus
Oh, so you're
teacher
employed by
retirement.
one district, so that
Yeah,
is.
yeah, but again, it becomes, the municipal agreement says that they're gonna be reporting to both school committees, but how you're gonna operate is one thing, the payment's another. But you gotta be careful with that. But all those worked out. I mean, I just got the one that Maureen Marshall did, 22 pages. I haven't had a really chance to look at it because another district wanted me to get it, so I got it for them. They're looking at that now. So, but again, all those would be agreed to and come out, how you're gonna do it, what shades you're gonna do, and how you're gonna do it.
Okay.
so-
And in your experience, this can be done successfully, not easily, I'm sure.
No, that's right, but it can be done. And I think you're really gonna be forced into doing something, because you're not gonna see any windfalls coming
Right.
from the state, unless all of a sudden they try to pass the millionaire's tax or the fair share tax, and even then when that happens, there's another meeting, they said, it's not a guarantee where that money will go. They say they want it for roads, and they want it for infrastructure, and they want it for education, but it's all subject to appropriations. So again, that's gonna be some real issues, so that's why we're suggesting that's why the state is putting these grants out. Take, look at this, see what the possibilities are, because it's not gonna get, I don't see any rosier for a while.
To encourage people to do
Yeah.
this exact thing.
Yeah. And I would want to say, it's a change in the culture, everybody. And one of the things, we've been working with some districts, and they're looking concerned that they're going to lose their own identity about this, and especially when you get, and it's happened here, when you, in this area, when you close a school, because there's only 30 kids in the class, or K6 or K4, it's not operationally feasible, and they close it. And this happens in Vermont and also around here, is that they close that school and they say, we're losing our local identity, we don't want to lose our school. And that's been happening. So again, but it becomes, the point is how much do you want to pay, and how inefficient is the operation? And the kids don't get the best education either.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Sue?
This is a question for the committee. Are we clear going forward that we're separating out the business manager and the superintendent? And that we are hiring, not just for this year, but going forward, a part-time business manager? Because that impacts what we advertise for the
Everybody
superintendent.
understands.
think so.
Well, I think,
I think that's what we agreed on.
Jeannie?
I personally think we should leave our options open. That if we have a qualified interim superintendent apply, who can also be the business manager, we need to look at that and consider it, and not just automatically strike it.
I'd like to give you some advice on that. There are very few superintendents, and they've come up on the academic side, that are also on the business side. I was the exception. I hold an MBA from the University of Vermont and my doctorate from UMass Lowell in education. I was a teacher. Most people coming up on the academic side, they're coming up on the business side. Very rarely do you see both, and like Ruth and myself kind of ought. It's not the normal. So, but I would agree with you, Jean, that take a look at your options when it comes in. Don't just put it down. Take a look who applies. Could they do it? Okay, if they can't, don't. But you got to look at some long-term. You want a part-time business manager? I mean, I agree with you. Take a look at all your options, who applies, and take a look and see what you can do. But I can just tell you, it's not that common that superintendents are also business managers.
David?
I feel strongly that in the future, the business manager and the superintendent ought to be
Two
separate
Yeah.
individuals. I don't think that we should engage in anything for more than 1 year. We need to keep our options open. There's a lot of opportunities that just don't exceed our challenges. But I think we would be closing doors to commit to a business manager for more than a year. So I do think we've got to, I'm not so worried that we will end up with a retired colonel anymore. I think I've talked to some retired superintendent friends. They do this sort of thing. They exist, but they're not looking for a lifetime commitment.
Understandably, they've had a lifetime of work.
The other thing you might want to think about, though, is that I think the interim makes sense, but also it gives you an opportunity to talk to Gil Montague, and really kind of look down the road at the grant. And if you are flexible in what you get for a superintendent or a business manager, if down the road in not that long time that it looks like it's going to work out with them, then you would have an exit clause if in fact you wanted to do that. So it doesn't mean you have to lock yourself in even for a year necessarily. You might want to, but with hiring a retiree, it gives you more flexibility of maybe getting out of an agreement earlier if you think that some of your other options with the other school districts in the area make sense, but at least you have the door open that way.
All right, now we're all completely confused. Do we have any other questions? Yes,
But
Sue?
we're clear on what we're advertising for
Yeah,
this year.
definitely.
So we know where we're headed. We're doing a
Yes.
half-time business manager, we're doing an interim superintendent.
Exactly. Okay.
An interim
Do we have-
full-time superintendent? Or an interim part-time superintendent?
Part-time.
I
Yeah,
think
I
we were
thought we
doing
said
part-time.
part-time.
I think that was our vote, was
Okay.
part-time.
Okay. Just wanted
We'll have to
make-
look back at our minutes, but I'm sure that's what it was.
So we're
If somebody-
following, oh, sorry.
I don't-
We're following, right now, kind of parallel tracks. We're looking for next year for the interim part-time superintendent. But we're also keeping the door open and investigating and going to meetings about the Gil Montague sharing.
Right,
So we're following both of those,
exactly.
which is good because we're not locking ourselves out.
Right. David?
I think we ought to also look at the opportunity that Mahar with the superintendent and business manager afford. We shouldn't say no to anything at this point, but we're going to need to make a decision and mount up and ride pretty quick, because when it is now. But at this point, I think everything should be possible. So if in the unlikely event that a retiree says this job needs full-time, but I'm only going to charge you, that'd be okay too.
We want you to take it.
I took your full-time equivalent. There's a half-time equivalent, 40 hours a week, 52 weeks, is 1,040 hours. So the 900 and something, that's gonna
That's
be
for a
like
year,
0.4
yeah.
or something.
That's what they were allowed to, yes.
Okay, do we have any more questions of Steve? If not, thank you so much.
Okay, I'll stay for a little while, see what's going on. As I get tired, then I'm going home. You have my phone numbers and my emails. I'd be very glad to, Pat, or I can talk to anytime you want, give me a call. And then if we can help you at all when you're getting down to looking at your candidates and looking for that, I'd be glad to come back for some help with that.
Thank you so much. We need all
Okay.
that.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
You're welcome.
Now you're going to move up to teachers and
Yeah.
team,
Right.
wherever they are.
Yeah. Yes.
Kind of a follow-up.
Sure.
Do we have other towns or districts that have reached out to us
Mahar.
besides Marhar?
No, those are the only ones I've heard.
I thought
at the-
Mohawks did it first.
At the very onset, Mohawk did, and I heard from them once, but never heard back. So I think that was, no, they didn't pursue it. So I think not. I think it's just Mahar and Turner's. On your mind.
Pat, before we move on,
Yes.
who's gonna nail down that job description and distribute it for this half-time superintendent?
Okay, you and David, we're going to work on that.
Excuse me. Business manager. Sorry.
Okay,
You can't hear, sorry. I was just trying to make clear who's gonna write the job description and get it out.
okay, I thought you two were doing the superintendent.
We were talking about the
Business
business
manager.
Okay,
one.
I misspoke,
But
misheard
Steve
that.
suggested he could help with the
Exactly.
superintendent one.
Right.
I can contact my association and get something for you. And
We'll get one from him, too.
Yeah.
That's the superintendent's organization, they would have
We'll
one.
get one from him too. He offered to
Right.
get us one, so I
But
think we also,
the thought was that we need it ASAP, like yesterday.
and I think Stephen said he could do that.
So we need to get it, and we need to get it posted.
I'll touch base
That's
with
a
Steve.
question.
Be sure.
We heard from Mahar. There was a deadline on the letter for us to let her know or something, what our interest was, if it was.
I have the letter.
And
I don't
is it
have that
possible
with
to
me.
have her come and talk to us some night?
Well, I heard from Dan Haynes.
Yep.
I called him, and he was going to, that was like early December maybe, and he was going to talk to his committee members, because he has like 3 committee he works under, and get back to me. He has not done that.
Okay,
So-
for his position only.
For his position only.
Okay.
And someone had spoken to a person on the Mahar committee, and they had not heard of anything. So whether Dan did not bring that to the committee or what, I don't know.
But it was a shared position, I think, that
Yes.
Terry sent us.
Yes,
So this is her proposal. It's dated December 8th.
yes.
Yeah,
Um,
and the deadline for
I don't
response
see-
was-
I didn't see a deadline either.
You wanna look at it?
But it,
Well, we should question her,
yeah,
see
Mm.
see if she could,
Right.
yeah, see if maybe she could come and talk to us a little more about it, maybe the next,
Okay.
or the search committee or whoever.
Jim?
Pat, what's holding up our getting a job description for an interim out?
For intro, superintendent?
Yeah.
We need to have that Ruth's job description, and we have got a piece of it here in front of us, but we haven't, this is the first time we've seen this information, so we're just waiting to get the right info so that we could make the
Yeah, but we
job.
keep waiting and waiting and
We
waiting.
have it now.
All right.
So we'll get that. And if we can connect with Steve and with Gwen, maybe we can get a sort of a generic job description and get that worked on. So
I would just give this to Steve right now.
Yeah.
And you gave him a copy?
all right.
And could you incorporate whatever Ruth's feedback was here with your boilerplate in?
What I'll do is, I know, my interview, we did the job description for Narragansett, which is a two-town representative type concept. I'll get those tomorrow and forward those to you, both on the superintendent and on the business manager side, because I know those well. And
Fantastic.
I think those would fit to what you want to look at, and you can make the changes.
Great, that would be super.
Thank you. Good job, Sue.
Just a quick question, is the subcommittee that was set up to work on this, Jim, Search, Superintendent Search?
Yeah.
You're functioning, and you're the point people that are
It
kind of
was Peggy
sitting.
and Jim
Peggy.
and myself and John.
Okay.
So should Steve send stuff to you as the point
Or-
person for that subcommittee?
I would believe so,
Seems
yeah.
like a lot of people, I mean, it's great that a lot of people
Right,
are
it's
doing
just-
things, I don't mean
somebody's
that, but
gotta
I'm
just give
wondering.
Yes.
Somebody sent me an email, tell me where I'm supposed to send.
Yeah, really,
Okay.
yeah.
Getting a little,
I'll do that tomorrow.
Okay.
All right.
My email.
I'll find it. Okay, can we move on to the next? Jean has brought with her tonight some teachers, so I would like to move that out of order. It was on the agenda further down, and I can't find where it was. It was the discussion on graduation requirements. So
you go first, so they can go home and do their exam. Proposed changes.
Yeah, they have exams.
Yeah, they have exams.
It's okay, we're happy.
We've already spoken to them, they're good. We'll take them when we take them.
Can I have that, Sharon?
Yeah.
Did you see anything in there about?
You can, but we've been asked first to move the teachers up. So if Jean, you can come with your staff and run us through, and then we'll
Got a number of us.
That's all right. That's good.
This is the changes to the graduation requirements.
This is getting more
My goodness.
Good. So I have a couple
Oh, here they are.
that I want to pass around to supplement with what you received in your packets ahead of time. So there's one in color that's coming around. And then there's a similar packet that's in orange that's also coming around. Because you got a version of the color one in your packet that was black and white.
Oh, okay.
So we are here tonight to ask for your approval of two proposals we want to bring before the board to improve college and career readiness for our students here at Pioneer. One concerns changes to our graduation requirement, and the second proposal concerns changes to our expectations for the number of courses that are taken by students in their junior and senior years. These two proposals grew out of conversations that I first had when I came to Pioneer the summer before this past summer. I met with about 75% of our faculty at that time in individual meetings and a handful of parents and students. And the word I heard more than anything else from all those meetings was about rigor and a desire to improve the rigor of the education that we offer to our students at Pioneer. So on the heels of those kinds of conversations, last spring I brought before our faculty here at Pioneer some discussion about MassCore, which is the state's recommended series of required courses for students in comprehensive high schools in order to ensure that they emerge from our high schools ready for college and ready for career. So the state recommends a certain program of study. And I had conversations with our faculty here about that last spring. Then over the summer I reached out to our parent community some members of whom are here, to ask if some parents were interested in having conversations about what academic excellence means here at Pioneer and what they hope for their students. So I had 12 parents step forward, and we met over the summer and throughout the fall. We looked at a lot of data on outcomes for our students and things about Pioneer, and that group of parents really put together these 2 proposals that they think are really important for our students and their children. And then after we put some proposals together, we took them on the road. We had community meetings in each of the 4 towns to share the proposals, share our data, get additional input and ideas from the community. And then finally, I brought the proposals again back to our faculty here in December, and we discussed them some more, and I asked for faculty to sort of give a thumbs up and thumbs down around those 2 proposals, and the data about that I shared with you in your packet. So the 2 proposals, the first is to align our graduation requirements with the Mass Core requirements. In your packets, I described in detail the differences between what we currently require of our students and what Mass Core requires. So the proposals are to add a 4th year of mathematics to our current graduation requirements, 2 years of foreign language. We currently have no foreign language required for graduation at Pioneer, and then 1 year's worth of credit in the arts. We currently have no arts requirements here at Pioneer. So those are the major changes which would bring us into alignment with the Mass Core requirements recommended by the state. Also in your packets were comparisons between Pioneer's current graduation requirements and those of the area schools. And you'll notice that many of the area schools, Mohawk, Frontier, and Mahar all require either Mass Core or requirements that are even more than Mass Core in terms of like a 4th year of social studies and a 4th year of science. So Pioneer's current requirements are not in line with those of our neighbors, and they're not in line with what the state recommends. So that's our first proposal, is to bring those in line. The second thing we talked about is really making sure that we deliver to all our students the 990 hours of high-quality, structured learning time that we're required by law to give them. In the current system, in the current requirements of Pioneer, when students are in their junior and senior years, they're required only to take 5 courses out of our 7-period day. So if students choose, they can have between 1.5 and 3 hours of study hall time during their junior and senior years. We did a study in the fall with the help of our faculty about how students are using that time. About half of the students are using it well, and about another half are not using it well. And we're required to provide them that opportunity to learn, not necessarily be in classes, but to be engaged in some kind of structured learning activity, whether it's an internship or a work study experience or an independent study or something that they need to be successful academically. So when we talked about it, and what we talked about in the community was really wanting our students to be academically engaged in some learning activity for 7 periods a day. So to facilitate that, we're suggesting that instead of requiring 5 courses for juniors and seniors out of a 7-period day, that we require 6 courses for juniors and seniors out of a 7-period day. The color copy that I passed around is the actual changes to the current program of studies and student handbook that would be required to make these 2 proposals a reality. The black and white copy that I just passed around is our current requirements, so that you can sort of compare them side by side. And I asked a few people to come with me tonight to share their perspectives with you on these. These are members of our Academic Excellence Committee, and they're going to share what they want, introduce themselves, and share anything they want in a minute. But first, I have 2 faculty here, and then 2 faculty who couldn't be here who sent me statements to read. So you guys want to talk first, or you want me to read first? I can read first, okay. So first, Kevin Mortensen, who's a special educator who's been teaching at Pioneer for 20 years. So this is his statement. Since entering the special education field 30 years ago, it has become very apparent that not all kids fit the public school model as implemented. As Glenn Kuchar articulated in a recent school committee meeting, kids are coming to school with greater and more pervasive social and emotional issues than before. In my perfect world, if a student is struggling with hours of seat time in the classroom and not invested in any of the extracurricular activities that a school offers, a team would be assembled that would mirror the child study or special ed process, whereby they would analyze the student's current standing with MCAS testing, grades, and credits. If the MCAS requirement had been met in grade 10, the team could create a plan where the student demonstrates any remaining needed competencies in a variety of ways articulated by the team. A short but not complete list of examples might include work-based activities, independent study projects, community service, volunteer programs, etc. As it now stands, there is little flexibility for the school to vary its instruction from the program of studies. With more options for students to demonstrate mastery of competencies, Pioneer would be able to help transition that small number of students successfully from school to work or higher education. Thanks for your consideration. So Kevin's really speaking about that aspect of the proposal before you that allows myself or the administration and the faculty to create alternative pathways for students for whom the regular seat time model is not appropriate and not feasible to get them to graduate. So that's an element of our proposal. Kelly Griffith, our grade 9 through 12 guidance counselor, submitted this statement. Studies have shown that increased graduation requirements lead to a higher number of students applying to and enrolling in higher education during their senior year of high school. Additionally, these same studies have shown that an increase in requirements also increases college readiness in students and reduces the number of students in need of remedial college courses. Of this year's senior class, only 68% are meeting the math and language requirements needed to gain admission to a four-year college and university. That means that 32% of seniors have not taken the minimum courses required to even apply to and be admitted to a four-year college. While we can advise students of what courses to take and recommend that they prepare themselves adequately, if we do not have the standards set at a level that prepares all students for admission to a four-year college, then we are doing students a disservice. This year alone, I have talked to numerous ninth graders into persisting in their language courses for the duration of the year. Knowing that language is not a graduation requirement, several students request to have dropped it from their schedules. For many of these students, when I explain that language is a requirement from college, the information falls on deaf ears. Ninth graders are typically not in a place developmentally to make decisions that seem too far into the future to matter. From a counselor perspective, allowing them to make these important life decisions at such a young age seems irresponsible. Making it a requirement for students to take 2 years of a language and 4 years of math allows them to have more postgraduate opportunities available. Raising the graduation requirement not only sets our students up for success, but conveys to them and the rest of the community that we know they are capable of living up to these higher expectations and hopefully instills a sense of pride and confidence as a result. So I'll ask Ms. Betzold and Ms. Derrick to share their perspectives on these proposals.
Hi, I'm Penny Betzold. I've been a science teacher here for 11 years. I also have 2 sons who are graduates of Pioneer. I think it's very important for kids to be engaged throughout the day. And I agree with Kevin that there are a lot of ways to engage them. But having 2 study halls a day is not engaging many of our students. They could be much more productive with that time. I would love them to be in art class with Tracy, or in music, or I'd love to have them in another science class. But I think 180 days, 6 hours a day is not very much, and I think they should be actively engaged in learning all of that time.
Hi, I'm Tracy Derrick. I've been a visual arts teacher here at Pioneer for 18 years now. And my opinion, this is actually I believe now 4th time we've tried to present fine arts or performing and musical arts as a graduation requirement. The last time I remember was 2011 and 12. And at that point, I ran some numbers with guidance office, and I think upwards of 60% of the graduating kids from Pioneer voluntarily elected to take an arts or a music course before they graduated. So my argument at that time was that there wasn't much, there's another 40% of kids we're not getting to, but a lot of them voluntarily, even without it being a requirement, are electing to visit the arts rooms. I actually am also an 11th grade advisor this year, and I know I had several students in my advisory that started the year with 4 study halls on certain days of the week. And it was very difficult with the staffing and challenges of this year to eliminate some of those study halls over the course of the year. Some of them were able to, some of them weren't, and still are in study hall 3 blocks on certain days of the week, or 2 blocks is pretty regular for some of my 11th graders. They're not even into their senior year yet, which will allow them to possibly have even more openings in their schedule. I don't want to go into a lot of the arguments made for arts as an enrichment to a student's education, but I will say that our arts department, specifically the visual arts, has a lot of resources that are no longer available in a lot of public institutions. For instance, we have the only working film photography darkroom in Franklin County at this point. I believe some of the private schools still have one. But I always tell the kids this is something that they really won't come across for too many places or for much longer, the way things are going, and that they should take advantage of everything they have offered to them here. We also have a furnace for casting metals, which is kind of unheard of in a high school setting. We have both myself and John Facilia who have degrees in 3D studies and know how to operate some of these welding torches and casting furnaces, which is, again, it's something that I think if they have it available to them, they should take advantage of. So I think that's the crux of my argument, is that there's a lot of things here at Pioneer that kids aren't necessarily aware that are even there, and because they have an option to not investigate them, they do. And, I've seen over my 18 years here, I've seen kids start to manipulate their schedule as early as 9th and 10th grade so that they end up with a senior year full of study halls and senior privileges so that they can come in late and exit early. And I just think it's a shame that they're not in my room. Right. Well, thank you.
Where do the performing arts fit into the arts?
It would be one of, as an arts requirement, our department is currently, it's the chorus and theater teacher, the band director, and myself. So there's just 3 of us, but
Chorus teacher,
the graduation requirement, the kids could fulfill it by taking either visual arts or performing arts. Musical, performing arts.
Thank you.
With the new proposals, does this open the door for some students who do 4 dance classes a week? Not at the school, but at a school of dance?
I would think similar maybe to physical ed, I'm not certain. It's going to be on my
So
purview.
does it open the door for them to be able to get credits?
This proposal, thank you. This proposal itself doesn't do that, but that's certainly something that we could explore. Some of the changes we made this year to our physical education courses are sort of moving in that direction, but in order for them to get credit for things they do outside of school, they have to do a little bit more work to make it part of their school credit.
Like independent study?
Yeah, we'd have to frame it a little bit differently.
Okay.
And then I have 4 parents here who served on our Academic Excellence Committee, and they're going to introduce themselves and talk a little bit if anybody would like to. You don't all have to, but if you just want to, does anyone want to?
I could talk for an hour.
Time's up. We're going to get an 8 time.
2 minutes.
So I'm Deborah Cote. I have a daughter, Vivian, who's in 9th grade. So this proposal would accomplish a lot of different things. Probably, maybe most importantly, it would keep teachers instead of having teachers have to leave. I know that there are teachers, there's some classes that are under-enrolled, not enrolled at all. I think there's a rock music class that has no one in it. So when you talk about having the students have something else count, that scares me because I want as many teachers to stay. So that makes me uncomfortable. I want them to be in the classroom studying. So that piece, I don't want that to happen. I really want students to take art classes.
I wasn't implying that they would substitute. You know, this is something they do outside of school time.
Right, but I want the teachers to be fully employed here. I want them to be valuable, right? And so they're going to be valuable if they have students in their classrooms during the day. So I'm going to say that. It's important to me, as someone who works in higher education, to recognize that not all students are going to go to college. I get that, but I would want every student who graduates from Pioneer in 10 years, in 15 years, in 3 years to be able to go and apply to college and not have to take a remedial course. I would want them to have all the requirements that would get them into school, right? Wouldn't we all want that? They don't have to go to a 4-year college right away, but over time, if they wanted to in the future, I would want that to be not an obstacle to stand in their way. And the only way that can happen is for them to take the courses that are required to get into a 4-year college here, while they're here. It is shocking to me that Pioneer is now only going to reach the Mass Core requirements. Mohawk, Frontier exceed. Mohawk has honor classes. You know, we're not even going to go there. But someday, I would like us to be just like Mohawk and Frontier and to exceed. I would like all students to leave having 4 years of science, 4 years of math, and 4 years of social studies, along with 4 years of English. I probably have other things I can say, but I am not kidding. I really want Pioneer to be all that it can be. And I want so much for my daughter not to be, to be able to look around and see that everyone in her class is getting the same education that she, as a college-bound student, is going to get. Because obviously there are some students who are doing these things, but I would really want everyone to be required to do that in some fashion.
Sharon?
Yeah, I think that this is a good thing to do, to increase these requirements. But let me just give you a little history about the past. I have 3 children that went through the district. It isn't all gloom and doom, okay? All of them went to college, okay? So I know we need to change, and I'm on board with that. But I hope you appreciate the things that have been done here too, because it sounds like it's not being appreciated.
I'm not really concerned about the past. What I'm concerned about right now is that when you're looking at what Pioneer requires, and if you're going to come and make a decision about where you're going to live based upon schools' expectations for their students, I know my husband and I, we would not have chosen Pioneer. We would have said, I'm going to go to Mohawk because expectations there are different. That's what I'm saying. I would want real estate. I would want, people to be able to look and see that we're all very similar. And often when people come to Western Mass or to another part of the state, they're going to look and see what schools, is one school district better than another school district? And I think this can have an effect on where people choose to go. And I think that's important. It's a value. And we can say, oh, but Pioneer is great. Yeah, Pioneer is great. I send my girls here. I'm going to continue to be committed. I have no problem with that. But I also think it's okay to say, wow, we have not fulfilled this piece that we should have. And it's okay to admit that. And we can move past that and do what we're supposed to be doing. Okay?
Okay.
Go ahead. Bethany Fowler. I'm a successful Pioneer graduate. I've been a district employee for over 20 years, and I'm a parent of a current school choice student. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I feel like our process was thorough, and the answer with brevity.
My name is Jody Frazier. I'm not a graduate of Pioneer. I'm a graduate from the state of Florida. But I have 2 children here. I have a 7th grade son and I have a 9th grade daughter. And I really feel passionately that we do need to make our requirements match Mass Core and also match other schools. I know from talking to other parents, there are times that when kids leave here, they don't have the required math, they don't have the required science, so they are required to take remedial courses when they get to college that they have to pay for, but they're not getting credit because they're remedial classes. You don't get a college credit for a remedial class in college. I think it's important. I think we're doing our kids a disservice to not have them leave high school prepared either to enter college or to get a job if they're someone who's choosing not to go to college. I teach, but I teach outside of this district, and I teach fourth graders. I actually teach in the Frontier School District.
I'm Susan Renfrew, and I'm a resident of Bernardston, and I have 2 kids here in the high school. And I got involved with this group because we have been through a very rough time here, whether or not anyone wants to admit it. And the kids have been through a rough time. The teachers have been through a rough time. I think we all can agree it's been hard on all of us. And what we were looking to do is to find a way to move forward and to increase the benefit that students get from being here at Pioneer, which is what we're all supposed to be concerned with primarily. To follow up on what Deb has already said, it is a fact that people will look at other schools and compare the schools when they're deciding where to locate to raise their families. Now, for people who are already living in this district and have kids in the elementary school, myself included, when our children come to 7th grade, we have sort of a trust that someone has been keeping up with the times and moving the requirements forward in a way that keeps our school competitive with everybody else, and that our kids are going to be prepared to make the choice to go to college or to get a career when they leave high school. I think when we went to the community forums, one thing that was very, very clear to us is that there were parents there that were surprised to find that we did not already meet the Mass Core requirements. So this is, I think, a very important decision that we make today, these proposals. I would urge you to pass them. I think it's an opportunity for this school committee to make a unanimous vote on something that directly impacts the students in this school district, and it would certainly make a statement to our communities and to the people who would consider coming to Pioneer that you mean to educate our children. Thank you.
Thank you. So does anybody have any questions?
There was,
okay.
I was just wondering where band and chorus fit into all these requirements. And
So band and chorus would fulfill arts requirements?
But in the current situation, is band and chorus one of the electives? Is that the-
Right, band and chorus are electives.
So if you took band and chorus full-time for 4 years, you wouldn't have any time for electives?
No, you certainly would. You have plenty of time. So if you look on the things, the total number of credits that students are required to take for graduation has only increased by 2 credits, which is less than a 1-semester course. So what we just did is we shifted things which were currently in the elective column, like band and chorus. They can now count towards our graduation requirements in the arts. So there's 7 periods a day. You know, if kids are taking 4 core academic courses, at least through their sophomore year, and then a foreign language. Again, most kids take it at least through their freshman years because they typically earn 1 foreign language credit while they're still in the 8th grade. Then they still have 1 or 2 open periods a day to take band or chorus or band and ceramics or, band and civil liberties or whatever else they want to take. They have 7 periods a day. And many students fill those up, but a lot of our students do not. Right now, 39% of our seniors have 2 study halls a day. And they have what are called senior privileges, which means that some of them you'll see sitting and studying down in the senior lobby. Some of them are just sitting on the bench in the front hall, socializing and on their phones. Kids leave and go to Dunkin' Donuts and come back. There's just, I think what everybody who's talked to me about this and what I heard from the community is there is this sense that we only have them for 6.25 hours a day. It's not asking a lot for them to be engaged in learning for 6.25 hours a day. And that's what we're asking them to do.
Jim? I'd like to hear what our student representatives, if they have anything to comment.
I will say that I think Pioneer is unique in terms of the heterogeneous setting that we have, and I think that is something to take into account, as well as the Mass Core requirements. because I think we are definitely unique in that way, and that is a huge, I don't know, that's a huge part of who we are as a community and as a district. And implementing honors courses would go against that philosophy that we have sustained and that has grown in our district.
Yeah, and we're not talking about any honors classes at the moment.
Yeah, and I understand.
Right.
I'm
We're
just
not,
saying-
that's not on the table. That's just something that I had been asked to put the data together to compare, to see how it worked out.
And I think that that's why it's hard for us to compare to other schools in the area, because of our different learning objectives and the way we learn differently, and the way that the school is unique in that sense.
And I mean, I wouldn't say I have a viewpoint either way. I haven't really put a lot of thought into this. I know for me right now, I'm taking as many classes as I can. I want to get a good education. I want to go to college. So I'm already doing what you guys want us to do. So I mean, I haven't really put a lot of thought into it. So I don't think I can make an informed decision right now.
Yes. Sharon and then Robin.
Do you see an increase in staff needed with this?
For this particular proposal, there would be no increase in staff needed. So I looked up all sorts of statistics to figure out about it. So for example, right now we have 53 seniors, 8 of them are not taking a 4th year of mathematics. All the rest of them are. So in our current math classes for seniors, we have one class that has an enrollment of 21, one that has an enrollment of 15, and one that has an enrollment of 14. So there's certainly plenty of room for those 8 extra students across those courses. Similarly, in the arts, I pulled together the enrollments for our electives, and they range, again, there's a couple electives that are full to capacity. I think there's like 2 in the whole, but 16. So 16 electives have enrollments of somewhere between 2 and 14 students, with an average probably of about 7. So there's plenty of room for kids to be taking additional electives. So there wouldn't be any more staff required to do these proposals.
Robin?
And that would be 1 year out?
So in terms of the requirement that kids are engaged in take at least 6 courses in some kind of learning activity during the school day, that we would propose to start next fall. And then the graduation requirement change would roll out with the class of 2020. So it would be 2 years out that class would be required. So our current juniors would graduate under our current system, but the sophomores and our current sophomores and our current freshmen would graduate under the new system. And I looked up right now. Yeah, so right now for the class of 2020, our current 10th graders, all but 6 students are on track to complete the Mass Core requirements, and the ones who are not on track are missing some foreign language. And as you'll notice in the proposal, we've inserted some language into our current requirements that suggest that we can waiver certain requirements if students have documented disabilities. That's currently not something that's in our waiver process, so we inserted that in there. Because many of the students who don't take foreign language have a language-based learning disability, so we want it to be easy for them to waiver out of that if that's necessary to move them forward. And then 13% of our freshmen, or 7 students, are currently sort of not on track yet for Mass Core, so 93% of our current freshmen would be on track to graduate based on their current course-taking patterns. So there's just a few kids, and some of them might waiver out because of certain disabilities or other reasons, but I think we're in a good shape to get the class of 2020 and beyond up to meeting the Mass Core requirements.
Robin, you have
I felt a strong response to the recommendation of the guidance counselor, who could not be with us but sent a statement. Working with the types of students that I do in my other world, it is really, I feel strongly that it's really important to set those expectations for kids who's, are not in the position yet developmentally to set them for themselves, and I think it speaks volumes to a student to say, no, we know this, that you can do this. If you say, well, don't worry about it, you're never, to say that you're not going to meet the requirements that it would take to get into 4-year college, it's to say to a kid, don't worry about it, we know you're not going to try.
Set the bar high.
Set the bar high.
comments
We're gonna
from
approve
this
it.
committee?
Go for it.
Yes, David?
I would like to make a motion that we approve the proposed revisions as presented.
I'll second.
At the same meeting, we see them.
That's what I am proposing.
All right.
I'll
Yeah.
second.
Before we take a vote, there's two people out in our audience that have raised their hands, Martha and the gentleman behind them, so why don't the two of you speak? Martha,
I
go
was
for
just
it.
curious, because you were talking about the kids that have a lot of study halls. How many of the
Speak up,
students that are
Martha.
graduating now, if you moved their coursework like band or chorus or arts into acceptable requirement fulfillment for this new standard, like how much would they be passing now anyway? How many kids is this really going to affect?
So in the packet that you all have, and those of you who are in the community who received the January panthogram that we sent out, there was a chart in there that showed the proportion of our graduates in 2016 who met the mass pull requirement. For Pioneer, it was 48%. For comparable schools, it's in your guys' packet.
No, I'm just worried about Pioneer.
So it's 48%. At Mahar, it was 70%. At Frontier, it was 91%. At Mohawk, it was 100%. In the state of Massachusetts overall, it was 77%.
Okay, I was just curious.
All right, the gentleman behind, I only see the top of your head.
Well, my name is Brian, and shout out to G-Ma over there. Anyway, it's my daughter actually that she was referring to, who's in an outside dance class. They learn how to, besides dance, choreograph, things like that. She has no interest really in band, chorus, and with all due respect to where she, obviously we want to keep people working here as well, but I think there's got to be something in there that maybe we could do. Other than that, I'm all for raising that bar, okay? Because it's been lowered for way too many years, and it needs to come back up here. But she does have outside arts. And she's just not interested in the ones that are currently here. So, anyway, that was all. Thanks.
All right, what? Okay, go ahead, and then we'll take our
Karen O'Neill. Getting back to the question of would new staff be needed by increasing the required number of years of mathematics, I have two questions. How many high school mathematics teachers do we have now? And how many students currently do not take 4 years of math? How many would that add?
I think I just answered that a minute ago. So currently we have 53 seniors, 8 of whom are not taking a 4th year of math, right? But our math enrollments, and we have 3 high school math teachers, the enrollments in the classes that the other seniors are taking are 21, 15, and 14. So those 8 students would be spread across those 3 classes, which currently have enrollments of 21, 15, and 14. So there's plenty of room with our current staffing to require a 4th year of mathematics.
All right, so we've heard information, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Are we ready to vote?
Indeed.
And does everybody know what they're voting on?
So we're voting on one full count or both of them?
What was your motion? What was your motion?
Well, I took it as the proposed revisions to the program of studies as written, so that I think included both.
Graduation requirements.
Just graduation?
Requirements.
That's what David said.
Was that your motion, David?
I don't know.
It's all
What was the board like? I had this in hand, I was
Yeah.
moving this.
So that's the graduation requirements.
Just to make sure, the 2 components are the increased graduation requirements and the alternative pathways to graduation.
Well, then there's 3 components. There's the increase in graduation requirements. There's the greater flexibility to create alternative pathways to graduation for students who need it. And then there's a change in what it means to be a full-time student for our juniors and seniors. So instead of taking 5 classes per for, yeah, 5 classes, they'd be required to take 6, which is what we require of our freshmen and sophomores.
So sort of 3 new components to this.
Yes, if you want to think about that, yeah.
All three components.
But they're all in this proposal.
They're all
Right.
linked.
Okay, that was
Have
my
one
motion,
with your motion.
all the components.
Yeah, they're all like three
Adopting the
components.
recommendation.
All right. And that's what I seconded.
All right, so the proposed revisions to the program of studies. So is it all?
Yes.
And student handbook, because it's sort of, it's across those two things that right, that whole document covers both the changes to the program of studies that would be needed and the changes to the student handbook that would be needed to make those 3 ideas into a reality.
Okay.
Is that specific? Did you give it?
Let's go on. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Abstaining? Was Jim abstaining? All right, motion passes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. The next on our agenda are the sports boosters overview. I don't know who's going to speak to that. I see you jumping up. It must be you. All right.
My name is Kristen Gonzalez. I am the current president of the PVRSD Sports Boosters. Thank you for allowing me to come here this evening and just give a brief overview about our group. We are a newly formed group. We're independent from the school. We are comprised of parents as well as community members. And the purpose of making this group was to provide support to the student athletes, the coaches, as well as the school. One of our main goals that we're looking to do, in addition to supporting the student athletes and coaches, is we're looking to bring positive school spirit here to the school and support the student athletes however we can. We do have a board that's comprised of a president, vice president, treasurer, and we actually have 2 secretaries that share the role. We have implemented some liaisons, so what we did was we looked for volunteers within our community to be a liaison for each sport, the girls and the boys, and that way we can have an individual who can bridge the communication between the booster group to the coaches, to the parents, as well to the student athletes, and work with our athletic director. One of the first ventures that we took on this year was the concrete building that's out there on the soccer field. There was half of it is the media room and the other half was an unused, we've termed it the snack shack. And we were able to get in there and clean it out and provide a concession stand with some prepackaged items, waters, drinks, juices. With some of the funds that we raised, along with community members' donations from various medical providers and EMTs, we were able to supply the athletic department with fully stocked first aid kits with an excess of supplies. So each team now has a fully stocked first aid kit with everything that they could possibly need and want, with several cases of ice packs, because those tend to go very quickly. We were able to have a Rock the House event with the JV and varsity boys basketball teams when they played Hopkins here at the school. And that really was to promote school spirit, because that is one of our large rivals here at Pioneer. And during that event, we had 2 staff members, one from the middle school and one from the high school, that volunteered to allow themselves to be duct taped to the gymnasium wall. And then after the students and community members duct taped to the wall, we were able to pull the chairs out from underneath them safely. And it was quite enjoyable, I think, by many who came. We also had a toss the beanbag competition, in which we provided a gift card to Dick's Sporting Goods to whoever was able to toss the beanbag closest to the center of the basketball court. We're continuing to do concessions here at the school through the basketball season. We're unsure of what spring sports season will look like, but if it is available and nobody else would like to do it, we are up for that adventure. Lastly, we are planning a trivia night that's going to be held on February 10th at the Turners Falls Elks Club. So if anyone is interested in that, please feel free to reach out. You'll see a few ads in the mini ad section of the Greenfield Recorder in how to register for the evening. And we're hoping that is a successful, fun, and annual event. We currently have t-shirts and hats for sale. I brought a sample of one of our hats for the winter months since it's been very cold. So if anyone is interested in purchasing a hat or a t-shirt, please let us know. We'd be happy to get you one.
How much are the hats?
The hats are $25.
How much of it?
$25. And we designed them based upon all the recommendations of the students that we had inquired with, because they are the ones who are primarily wearing them. So, does anyone have any questions about our group?
I want to say thank you. I think this was a very important part of the sports program here. I know how successful the Booster Club has been at Franklin County Tech, and I will try to support as many of your activities as possible.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, as a coach, every time I see the boosters, I'm very excited that we finally have a booster club.
Well, we are happy to be here, and we're here to support the student athletes, the coaches, and like I said, the athletic department. We have been able to raise some funds, and we have a little account, so we've developed an application for applying for funds for the booster. So if there are sports teams that are looking for items that are not provided through the athletic department budget for the students, we would like to help them out and help them out equally across the board. So.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up is the Energy Committee. Jeannie?
I would love to see the school committee have a team to go to the trivia night that the Booster Club is doing. I've been to several.
Are you saying that you would like to form a team?
Yes, I would like to
Then maybe if people would like to go on the trivia team, talk to Jeannie.
You don't have to be bad. It's a collaborative effort. And let me tell you, the last one I did, we came up with some of the craziest answers.
Okay.
It's
February 10th.
February 10th at 6:30 at Montague Ellis.
So, connect with Jeannie. Okay, go for it.
Good evening. I'm Susan O'Connor, and this is Lynn Hansel. We're co-chairs of the Northfield Energy Committee, and we're here to just provide you with a bit of an update about an exciting opportunity that we're involved in. We have entered into a collaboration with two other towns, Warwick and Bernardston, with a plan to improve the energy efficiency of the schools in the Pioneer Valley Regional District. And our three towns have had 3 meetings to really plan out the work ahead. All 3 communities are green communities, eligible for state grants to improve energy efficiency of town buildings. And Northfield and Warwick have been involved for a while in doing work on municipal buildings. Bernardston is a newer green communities town. But what opportunity we have ahead of us is the possibility of being the first in the state to have a regional school district work on improving energy efficiency in our town. And we've been getting tremendous support from a number of organizations, DOER, a state agency, Clean Energy Extension, which is a UMass, a new UMass extension service that has really been supporting our work. So the way this goes is that in March we'll be applying for a new Green Communities grant to do work in the schools. Clean Energy Extension has already provided us with a list of possible ideas of things that we could do, but we are right now waiting for what's called an ASHRAE 2 audit to be completed in all of the schools. We're going to be having a walkthrough with this organization, ECI, on Monday to be completing that audit. And when those audits come in, these 3 town energy committees will be taking a look at the suggestions that they make. They let us know what they think the cost would be for an improvement, what the payback period would be, and what the potential energy savings would be and cost savings to the school district. So Lynn and I just wanted to come tonight on advice from the select board, who are very supportive of this effort, to share with you some of the ideas about what we hope we might be able to accomplish in the next couple of years by improving the energy efficiency. So I think Lynn's going to start by talking a little bit about some possibilities at Northfield Elementary School.
So the first walkthrough we had was from the Clean Energy Extension from UMass. It's not quite an ASHRAE level 2, but it was extremely elaborate. And of course, Northfield Elementary School, as you know, is composed of 3 connected buildings. The energy use in NES is 21% of Northfield's municipal buildings, energy use, of all of the municipal buildings in Northfield. So they were able to come back with some great, it's also the largest energy user per square foot of the schools in the district. So they did a thermal performance analysis. At the current time, we didn't have enough heating fuel data to accurately review the consumption, but with the ECI audit that we're expecting, we'll have that. But based on that data, what it comes out to be is that it's really, there may be a positive correlation between the oil use for heat and weather conditions, but what's very clear is there's a positive correlation between weather conditions and the electrical consumption, and they think it's because the pumps for the oil burners kick on, and that is using up a lot of the electricity in the building. The demand and load factor analysis, which that includes like smart controls for lighting and appliances, battery storage, lifestyle changes. The school would have limited benefit from those measures, but we'd still, of course, be looking into that. A big recommendation was to replace the current boiler system, and they're recommending pellet boiler. There's a possibility that the hopper for the pellets could be situated either within or behind the building. We know there's a historic aspect to the buildings, and we want to be mindful of the aesthetic. They also said we could purchase new oil burners, but they favor pellet boilers because of the renewable and sustainable fuel source. And one thing that is very clear in the Northfield Elementary School is the need for air sealing and increased insulation. The separate sections of the building's attics would all benefit from increased insulation and air sealing. The air handler located in the attic of the newest building should be insulated and enclosed inside the envelope to prevent additional heat loss. The closest and so I think if you've been in NES at all, you know how erratic the heat system is and how much it's leaking because of we need to do a better job with the insulation.
Just to really underscore how we're going to move forward, these are all ideas at this point, and we have to get these formal audits back in order to really make a determination about which things are going to be most important to do and net us the best energy savings and the best cost savings. So that is work that will be done over the next month and a half.
Because we can't do all of these recommendations all at once, so we're going to need to prioritize.
But what we have been hearing pretty much from everybody we've worked with is that the weatherization is, it's an easy lift. And I want to talk a little bit about this building. And as is true with the elementary school, there's work that can be done on making lighting and appliances and all more efficient. But we were surprised at how much weatherization work could be done here to great impact, given that it's a newer building. But there's quite a bit of a gap between the roof and the wall around much of the perimeter of the building. So we're anticipating that some weatherization could be done here for pretty good cost savings. They're also very interested in the idea of putting in a ground source heat pump, that this could also be used for cooling. Normally, a system like this is really expensive, but because the building has a well for domestic water, we could tap into that. So that's a great possibility. We also are looking at the idea of putting more low E-film on the windows to reduce unwanted solar gain. There's some E-film already on it, but by putting E-film all the way around, we could really have a similar savings that you would get if you had 3-pane windows. There's interest in having solar panel over the parking lot, both here and possibly at the elementary school. That cost would not be covered by a Green Communities grant, but it certainly would really help us with our electrical costs. So that's something that we have to explore in a lot more detail.
As Susan mentioned, we've been working with the Energy Committee. I can't remember the exact what they call themselves in Warwick, but it's do you happen to know? Okay, but it's the analogous,
I think it's the Energy Committee, isn't it?
It's the analogous organization.
Building and Energy, yeah.
And Janice is out of town right now, and so I'm going to speak a little bit about what they also found in Warwick, since she's not here to be able to do that. But our energy reduction plans are very similar. We work together to write them. There have been significant maintenance issues with the heating and fire suppression systems in Warwick. And then what happens is people go up to repair things, and then the ductwork gets damaged. There are also sections of the heating system that go outside the envelope, and so the heating system is dependent on glycol in the system, which keeps it from freezing when it goes outside the insulated building envelope. But the glycol is corrosive, and it also is harder to pump, so they're using more electricity to pump that through. So there's a thought that maybe draining the glycol and using a system that just uses water, and having what are the mini splits called? The little HVAC units, the mini splits in the areas that previously were served by the glycol system. They would be more locally heated. I think those are the biggies. Thermal performance analysis would be showed that demand control measures would be useful in Warwick. Warwick was able to get a lot more right up front with CEE about proposed costs, proposed savings and payback period in their section. Something we're looking forward to with the ECI audit for Northfield. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it for Warwick.
And you have a question about the mini splits in Warwick. Would you be using those, did you say for heating?
So it's really the vestibules. So it's really just the spaces that are the vestibules.
Okay,
and
those,
so
when it gets very cold, do not work in this area.
My house is we have 2 mini splits that heat and cool our whole house.
Yeah, we have our house.
And so no, we wouldn't be relying on those for heating and cooling large rooms in the school. But the vestibules where the heating system went outside the insulation envelope is the vestibules.
And I just want to add that we're also hoping to work with faculty to do some curriculum activities around this so that the youth are involved in some of what we are doing. And there's another question, I think.
I would just say, based on Warwick's experience with DOER and Green Communities, you do not have to worry about doing something inadvisable. Every measure is really seriously vetted for energy reduction and cost savings. And Warwick's had what I thought were good ideas, not funded. This grant program is will pay 100% of the betterments, but they need to be effective. So there's no way this board will get down to the level that the staff at DOER does.
So the, I'm sorry, I'm just going to just reply to that. One thing is that as I mentioned already, there are a lot of projects. We can't fund them all in one grant cycle. So we'll definitely be working with DOER and our auditors to pick the ones that are most cost effective. I'm sorry.
Sharon, it's okay. Are you working in coordination with our facilities director?
Oh, sorry, yes, Tim Brandall is very much on, yeah.
He's come to all of the meetings.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's very.
He'll be at the walkthrough on Monday, and yeah, he's been wonderful.
His name was on the list.
Is there any other questions of these ladies? If not, thank you.
Thank
Not
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's wonderful.
It's a lot of hard work.
It is a lot of hard work.
Now the kids.
Now, you guys, if you would like to tell us what's happening, we'll let you go home and
We'll keep
study.
it brief, we promise.
So something exciting that's coming up this Saturday is the band and chorus are hosting a chicken pot pie dinner, sponsored by the Bernardston-Northfield Club, which we're really thankful for to have them help out. So it's going to be $10 a person at the United Church, Bernardston, at 5 p.m. And we're really hoping to have a big attendance and support.
Yeah, and this will go to our both the band and chorus separate DC trips. I think it's in April, so this coming spring, we are each going to DC separately, but each going. Yes.
The date for the pot pie dinner?
It's
It's Saturday.
The 27th?
27th, yeah.
And I think there's a seating at 5 and also one at 6.
There's one at 5 and 6:15.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
6:15.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But they would turn you away if you came at
Bernardston-Northfield,
at
yeah.
20 past 5.
And I also saw if you could not go, they are selling pot pies to take home.
Frozen ones. Yep.
For $12 a piece. It was in some article today in the paper.
Yes.
So
You can
have
also
no-
get a to-go meal.
you have no excuse.
It's exciting stuff. Okay, so this is our exam week currently. So we are having half days. We started yesterday and we'll end tomorrow. And tomorrow also marks the last day of this first semester. And Monday we'll be starting our second semester, a little shorter, and get into the second half of the year. So we're all feeling pretty good, I think.
Great.
I think that's it.
That's it, huh?
Yeah.
Well, go home and study.
Go
so you
home
can
and study.
Thank you so much.
Ace those 2 exams.
Thank you.
No, they asked not to.
Yeah.
They were
We
good.
didn't want to go first. We were just.
Oh, no, we were all
They've been studying all this time.
Spanish and then English. English and Spanish, actually.
All right.
Yep.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay, next on our agenda is our resource officer. He is here, I wasn't sure. Great.
Uh-oh.
I apologize if everybody can't see this. I think when we set this up this morning, we weren't anticipating such a big crowd. We thought this would be the best spot to have this set up. But I will try and communicate whatever's showing up on here, and I'll try and make it as fast as I
They
can.
can move over this. Yes. If anybody over there wants to see it, we've got seats over here.
Okay. So good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Cummings. I'm the new school resource officer. I began in October of this year. I've been a police officer for 18 years as of next month, and this by far has been one of the greatest assignments, jobs that I've ever had in my career. Before coming here, I was a director of security facilities at Amherst College for 10 years. I worked for the town of Irving for 17 years, ending that in July of 2017. And this has been a great opportunity to come into the school. I, like many, was sort of curious of what a school resource officer would do with so much time in such a small school district, but I quickly learned, how busy this job can actually be. I mean, there's a lot of responsibilities in this job, and as I'll show you with some of the statistics that I have from the past few months, how many things I've been involved in, and how many things are kind of on my agenda down the road. So this chart right here just shows you for October, November, and December the incidents that have actually resulted in police reports. A lot of them are pretty serious things. I've been working hand in hand with Principal Bacon and Vice Principal Albert Perry on all of these incidents, and most of them were handled within the school administration, but a lot of these are pretty serious things, with truancy issues and domestic issues. But there's been a lot of things that have been happening here. You can see that in October, 15 incident reports. November and December were both 12. Thankfully, it's slowed down quite a bit. January's only thinking about 3 so far. But a lot of these are pretty serious things. And a lot of these will be, there's a website I'll show you at the end of all this where you can look at this closely in depth, kind of at your own pace.
Can you make that bigger?
On the website, I can't make this bigger right now, but like I said, if you want to look at all this information, I got a statistics thing on the web that you can look at it up close. So some of the legal assistance and referrals that I've been offering to the school since I started in October. We've had 4 truancy issues within the district that have required a CRA. It's a child requiring assistance petition with the juvenile court, which is a very complicated process that I've helped the schools administer. We've had a couple of serious domestic issues involving custody that required police intervention that have happened at the school. Some of them were interstate issues, so it was quite complicated. A couple of drug incidents that didn't result in any charges. The school handled it administratively, but would have obviously resulted in a police referral. 3 serious assault and battery with dangerous weapon incidents, and one of them actually did result in some charges that are currently going through the court system right now.
What month was that?
What's that?
What month was that?
October, November.
Thank you.
Some bullying cases. There's I want to downplay them, but there were sort of minor cases that involved some intervention by the school, and I would get involved to discuss both sides, the victim and the offenders, and go back and discuss what some of the repercussions would be legally with the offenders. And in a lot of the cases, when I've doubled back with everybody who's been involved, I've noticed that the activities either stopped or some of the explanation that I gave on the victim side of the offender saying, maybe that wasn't their intention. It's sort of bridged the gap with some of these people where there was a serious bullying incident and they've now become friends. So it's been great to follow up with the kids on these incidents that are somewhat traumatic and try and ice them over for them and keep going back over these incidents. One of our bullying incidents was kind of a widespread one that was pretty serious with some social media stuff. It went pretty widespread with numerous people involved. It actually involved in the victim's home actually having damage done to it that could have resulted in felony charges with people that were involved. It was pretty serious, but everything was handled administratively with the school. And again, doubling back with everybody when these things have happened has been very helpful to make sure everything's still staying on the up and up. There's been a pretty serious rash of malicious destruction within the school when I first started. That was taking up a lot of our time to discover them. The facilities people would discover them, or I would as well. And we discovered a lot of them involved some hate speech. There was a lot of Nazi symbolism and a lot of different things being drawn that were either gender biased that would result in a hate crime. There was actually 12 incidents between October and December, right before the Christmas break, and we haven't had any since then. We have stepped up walking through the school a lot more, especially myself. I go through the school many times a day, just going into all the different areas where some of these things were occurring. And working with the facilities folks, I created some charts that we would all log when we checked the certain areas so we could get time stamps on when things might happen, and it apparently has done the trick. I identified some of the students who were involved. We did have a few of them who we suspected, and I talked to them all. Talked about the legal repercussions of their actions if they were to be caught red-handed moving forward, and it really, like I said, we haven't had any incidents since the Christmas break, so that's been good. We did have one serious referral for a social media child enticement case that happened back in November, and one was actually brought to my attention this week, so we've had another serious incident that we've had to forward to the state police involving social media and internet things going on with younger students. Some of the educational programs that I've already been involved in that I created was some Halloween safety. I went to all the elementary schools and talked about Halloween safety in front of all the kids, and it apparently was very well received because myself, I have a 5-year-old, 5th grader in Northfield Elementary, and all of his friends and parents had told me that as soon as the kids got home, they were looking for the brightest and reflective clothing they could have. Every flashlight in the house was taken out, so they got the message. I saw them when we were trick-or-treating as well, and it was good to see them all with all the tips that I had given them. Just recently, I went to Northfield Elementary. I developed a 3-part series for internet technology safety that's geared for 4th, 5th, and 6th grade for the first part. The second 2 parts are going to be more for the 5th and 6th graders. I'm heading to Bernardston Elementary next week, and then I think Pearl Road's the week after, and make plans to go to Warwick as well. But it talks about some of the dangers, stranger danger happens online, all those kinds of things, and it's pretty surprising how many kids nowadays that they're in elementary schools have social media accounts. They all raise their hands, and then I asked them how old they were supposed to be when they had one of those, and I told them 13, and I asked if anybody was 13, and all the hands went down. So it was a good program. On the high school level, I've been participating in the health classes to talk about, they go and they demonstrate the effects of marijuana and alcohol, and I've gone in there and observed what they learn the effects are, and then come in later on and give my own presentation on how those effects are detected by law enforcement. There's really no way to fake your way through those if you were impaired, the penalties that go along with it, and sort of show them the field sobriety testing, how those are actually affected, and it seemed like it was very well received by a lot of the kids, and it got a lot of them to realize that I wasn't just a boogeyman walking around the school. I was really there to teach them about the ins and outs of all this stuff. And then stopping into American history class, talking about Fourth Amendment. I did quite a few of those sessions as well for search and seizure. Some upcoming programs I have going, like I said, I have the part 2 and 3 of that internet safety course with the 5th and 6th grades. Some social media responsibility with the middle school. The teachers and guidance have been bringing some of these subjects up that are needed in certain grade levels, so I'm developing these as well. Some bullying awareness, some phone security at the high school level, because they've had a numerous amount of phone thefts this year, so we're going to try to ease some of those issues with a little educational handout at lunchtime. Drug and alcohol awareness and some DARE implementation at the elementary school levels. I just became recertified as a CPR and first aid instructor last night, so I'm going to start to be doing that within the district, the town, and the region, wherever it's needed, helping out the school nurses and everything. The In Control vehicle safety and crash prevention, we'll do that in the spring closer to prom time to do the demonstration of the dangers of driving intoxicated. Some bullying awareness and response with our staff here at the elementary schools if it's needed. And some crisis and emergency planning with the staff, and as well as a intro to law enforcement, like a club program, if there was any kids out there who were thinking about law enforcement, the good, the bad, so to either sway them that it might be something they want to do, or turning them away, running away, saying that's something they never want to do in their career. Some upcoming plans for myself. I'm going to be a DARE instructor and going to the instructor school in the fall of 2018. Going to work with DARE administrators coming up soon to administrate an instructor. I'm going to pair up with him to do some DARE already for the rest of the school year and see how things are really done on that side, and get the DARE program going with them. School resource officer school, it was possibly for the summer. It could be as early as April of this year as well, so to officially become a certified school resource officer. And assisting with the district attorney's office of creating a regional school resource officer association. There's nothing now out there for regional networking and training to get these SROs together, and there's many of them out there that I know personally. So I'm trying to gather all the faces and names that I have and try and get a multi-meeting maybe 3 or 4 times a year to get them together for training and everything. And assisting with the DA's office to do some of the educational programs that they've already been out in the schools, instructing parents on some of these social media things and other areas of expertise that the DA's office has. And lastly, I've worked with our library staff here on getting a section of the district's website dedicated towards some of these school resource officer information. So I had just completed some of that. It's still in its infancy, but it will most likely go live next week. Let's see if I can boot it up here. The library staff helped me create this, and I've just spent time adding content to it. And what I plan to do is, like with the district attorney's office, I plan to videotape some of their sections and upload them to that website. So this is it here. So it resides on the PVRS main page under About, and at the very bottom it will be under School Resource Officer. So it's just a quick intro for myself, and it has a anonymous question, comment, submission form that I've already the students can just put anything in there. Parents, students, anybody can submit something on there, whether it's a question, it remains anonymous. You can put your name on there if you want to, but it's not necessary. And I did get one question the other day of, but why don't you have a parking sign, which was anonymous, and I didn't know the answer to that exactly, but maybe we'll look at that in the future. Apparently that was something that they saw at other schools. But under this webpage, there'll be a monthly statistics where some of the incident reports that happen within the district will be posted on there, just of their general title of what would be on there. And some of the activity reporting, If you happen to look at any of these, the activity reporting is a bar graph. It's not indicative of time spent, it's more of just log entries that are put in. So I could do maybe 4 15-minute walkthroughs of this building at a certain time during the day, or maybe I could sit in a class and do a 1-hour session. It's going to look like I did 4 times the amount of building walkthroughs than I did of the classroom. So it's not indicative of time actually spent. They're just entries into the log system that I have of what my activity is. So all that information is up there, along with a whole bunch of other stuff. I mean, like the cyber safety and digital citizenship. This is something that parents can look through. I have a lot of good links to different resources that they can go on here for. If there's ever any questions on stuff, they can kind of make a one-stop shop here of a bunch of different things that involve my position. So that is it. If there's any questions, please let me know. But that's what I've been up to. Yes.
Any questions? Yes. So
I'm just, I'm surprised to see DARE keep coming up for school resource officers. I thought that was completely discredited as not effective and only still being done because there's nothing else people have created, and I wonder if you can update us?
I can. So I've done a lot of research on that myself because I've talked with the guidance staff here and what their take was on it, because I personally didn't want to go and take this school, which is 2 weeks long, and come back and have an ineffective program. You know, I really wanted to teach something that's going to be valuable and it's going to work into the school's curriculum, because it's going to have to take up some sort of time at some point in the school. So there are already some life skills programs out there that are going on in the region that have been very successful, and it's more leaning towards decision making. And I guess the new DARE is exactly that. It's a whole new different program that is geared less towards alcohol and drug abuse and awareness. It's geared more towards good decision making skills, and it's much shorter, much more brief to get the kids' attention. Instead of just saying drugs are the boogeyman, stay away, stay away, stay away, it's make good decisions in everything that you're going to be doing. And it gives a lot of good examples of you know, if you were presented with this, if you're presented with a stranger, if you're presented with somebody who was going to offer you drugs, if you found them, it's all these different scenarios of good decision making instead of just you know, preaching drugs, don't do drugs, and all that. So
same name but different program.
It is, and that's one thing that you know. Once I said talking about DARE and should we implement it, a lot of people were like no, it was wholly unsuccessful. The old DARE, I guess, was, and I'm going to do a little bit more. Like I said, it's going to take a bit of an investment on my part, and I don't want to teach a failing program. But it looks like if we partnered up with some other experts in the area, we could make a really good anti-drug and good decision-making program. Maybe not call it DARE, but at least I could be certified in that section and teach bits and pieces as a collaborative effort on all these life skills that would really get that message across to the elementary school and middle school levels. Because sitting in the health class that they do at the high school level, Ernest, who's the teacher there now, he's new this year, he did a fantastic job. So I think the high school level is really well covered, but the younger stages where you got to get this message really in early. So, but I agree that the DARE I've heard a lot of bad things about. So it's
I mean the research, you just have to Google it, and it's like
it's
no,
bad.
Don't
It
do
is.
it.
It is.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there any other questions of committee members? Thank you.
All right.
This
Thank
is
you.
so good.
great.
This is what I thought an SRO should do, and we hadn't seen this before. So thank you so much.
I agree. I mean, when I came in, there wasn't a lot. There was a good reputation. The first person did a really great job, but I know there was a lot to be improved upon. So, you know, this is heading in the right direction, setting it up. So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right.
We're now down to our principal, and it says AD reports, but I don't see Gina. So maybe we should start with Elizabeth, who I see at the end, and work our way around wherever people are. So.
See, I'm in the middle.
Oh, you are?
Principal's over here.
Okay, I didn't see. Okay.
I'm happy to go.
All right, thank you.
So, to talk about a couple of things at Warwick, we're at that time of the year when there's just so much to do and feels like not enough time. But I'm going to be brief. I want to talk about the students. It's the time of year when we're starting to see displays of learning, and we had an all-school meeting last week, and part of our all-school meeting every time is for students to stand up and present what they've been working on and what they're learning, and it's a very satisfying, and I feel very proud when I see what they've done. We have an improv club because of a Mass Cultural Council STARS grant that we have. This is meeting for 5 Fridays after school. We have 14 students involved. That's approximately half of the children that were eligible to be part of it. So there's a lot of enthusiasm around that, and we've got some parents working with that has allowed us to open it to a few more students. So that's going very well, and they will present at our next all-school meeting. Let's see, a social emotional learning. I spend so little time, solving disputes and working on problems between children. We're implementing the new Second Step program that you all supported last year in the budget, and I can give credit to that. Of course, I give credit to the teachers, and I have to give credit to just the fact that Warwick has, what can I say, outstanding children, wonderful children. To talk about the building, we have had a little bit of wiggle room with the bulletin boards, and we now have bulletin boards going up. We've had to purchase flame retardant paper, which is an expense, but we're doing it little by little. We've got 2 rolls at the moment, and it's all working out, so that's really good. The teachers have been working on building new science units using the next generation science standards, that curriculum that just came out. They've been very active in that. I see a lot of use of the new program called Mystery Science, that is a very hands-on discovery mode curriculum for science, which is the children are very enthusiastic about, as is the principal. I also see a lot of engineering design process challenges going on in the developing, and rubrics being introduced where children have to really reflect about the process as well as their solution to whatever the challenge of the program was. I think it's happening at a higher and higher level, and I'm seeing, the reiterative aspect of taking one challenge, doing it, reflecting on what they produced and how they worked, and then doing the same challenge again to a higher level. So I'm very pleased with what's going on.
Thank you. Thank you. And we think the Warwick kids are pretty special too.
I beg your pardon?
We think the Warwick kids are pretty special too.
Oh,
But
yes.
there's also Bernardston and Northfield and Leiden that aren't half bad either, so. Yeah, what can we say?
I'm not saying that. Just saying we're.
Yeah,
I'll just hop in. So just to tag on, yes, a lot has been happening in the classrooms at Bernardston and Leiden, even with 5 snow days and 3 2-hour delays, and
We've been hearing your voice a lot.
Right. That's right. And a week's vacation in December, between writing personal narratives, some field trips. The 4th grade at Bernardston, Kelly Muse's class last week went to the Hitchcock Science Center in Amherst, so they got to see their living building that's sustainable and green. It's solar power, compostable toilets, uses rainwater for all of their water needs. They have climbing plants on the outside to insulate it for the summer, a heat pump for all of their heating needs. Students, while they were there, broke up into teams, and they were given a budget to purchase materials and to design a roof that collects rainwater. So it was a good trip. Going more into science, we have SEA AmeriCorps at both buildings, and the volunteers are working a lot with the students on renewable and non-renewable energy, the Earth's place in the universe. The volunteers are also doing after-school programs, and so getting them outside with a lot of winter activities. I've also got 2 field trips, one that went last Friday, one that's going tomorrow with grades 3 through 6 at both Bernardston and Leiden, over to the Dubuque Forest in Hawley, where SEA AmeriCorps is based. And so they'll be doing some outdoor activities there, some hiking around the lake, doing some tree identification, tracking, a lot of great activities outside in a very primitive location. And even though we're enjoying enjoying winter activities right now, we're very much looking forward to spring, even though it's going to bring MCAS testing, but it'll also bring spring concerts and some more field trips. And then coming up in about 2 weeks or so, I think we'll be celebrating our 100th day in school.
Oh, great.
So that it's moving along pretty fast.
Thank you much. Yeah, Megan's. Oh, she's up next.
So Northfield students and staff are pretty great as well. And we've been very busy despite all the snow days. Right before break, we had our 6th grade performed a play called 1,000 Cranes based on the Sadako and the 1,000 Paper Cranes book, and a bit of history there as well. That was very successful. Every month we continue to have our all-school meetings, and they're generally open to whatever classes want to offer, but at times we may have a bit of a theme. So in January we were focusing on Martin Luther King, and we had quite a few classes participate either by reading parts of the I Have a Dream speech, or writing their own versions or poems or sort of wishes for peace and whatnot. That was a very powerful day. We also, this is our first year, I think I mentioned it last time, that we have a AmeriCorps coming, as Bernardston does, and so they've been ongoing on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and that will run up through mid-March. There are some classes that are participating, not all, it's by choice, but this next Friday, the AmeriCorps group is coming, and it's for school-wide, so everybody will have a chance to participate in some science activities throughout that day. We've also just begun, again, our Northfield Mount Herman students coming to teach French classes. This year we've expanded it to 3rd grade, so it's 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade classes that are experiencing that. And this year I noticed a little shift when they first came on the first day. They're speaking, the teachers, who are the students at Northfield Mount Herman, are speaking French completely 100%. I thought they might have been confused that these are elementary students and they're going to need to speak some English, but they're really going full out, and of course supporting that with animation and whatnot. And I'm hearing that the kids are starting to take to that, which is really exciting. We've gotten approval for the STARS grant, so we will again have John Porcino coming back to do his fabulous work with writing and storytelling, and that will be running through February and March with most of the grades. Again, that's by choice, and there's a real enthusiasm for him and by him as well. We've been very busy with assessments, or trying to squeeze assessments in. January is that time of year where we look at mid-year assessments, and so we're finishing those up within the next week or so. And then lastly, last Friday we had a Winter Wonderland family dance that our PTO sponsored. I will admit that I was a little nervous about, elementary teacher. I wasn't expecting a dance. It sort of seems like a middle school thing. And it was for all grades, pre-K through 6th grade, including parents. And as you can imagine, when they entered and the music is playing, people were sort of standing around, and I wasn't quite sure how it was going to go.
Just middle school.
Right, they weren't in the corners, but they were just standing. And before long, everybody was dancing, and it was pretty amazing to see the 6th graders not, having sort of a 6th grade attitude, but really engaging in the dancing, and preschoolers and kindergartens right alongside, and parents as well. So we had a great DJ who helped kind of get everybody on the dance floor, and it was a great success. The gym was decorated. It looked like it could have been a prom. It was a lot of fun, and it's definitely a do-over. Again, huge credit to our PTO, they're just a fabulous group.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now I see Chris is over there, sort of, kind of. Yes.
I actually have something to say tonight.
Oh, good.
Last time I didn't. And
Oh.
I'll be brief. Last Thursday, I hosted a group from Stavros down, they're down in the lower Pioneer Valley. They're closely connected with Mass Rehab. And they presented a workshop for parents of special ed students. There's 2 programs. First one's called TAP, Transition to Adulthood Program. I put my glasses on here. And this program is for students starting at the age of 14 up through 22. And they help these kids doing peer counseling, advocacy, independent living skills, information and referral, and social, recreational groups. They'll do things like if your child needs to work towards getting their driver's license, they will come in and do an assessment. Can they physically do it? Can they pay attention to do it? And they'll even train them in how to do it. So that's a good resource. The other group that they have is called TIP. So they have TAP and TIP. And TIP is an actual internship program where they'll take students from 16 to 22 and help them have vocational experiences in the community. So, because eventually, because they are connected with Mass Rehab, they want to get students in the community, you know, working, getting jobs, getting the experiences they need. So they will provide support in whatever areas they need. And they will provide coaches, they will do training, counseling, like I said, job placement, training to get your driver's, whatever you need to get a position locally. So I just wanted to tell you about that, and the reason I wanted to do it was a lot of times parents are fearful or afraid of, you know, what's going to be out there for my child who may or may not graduate from high school. So there are programs out there. There are people willing to help them, you know, become more independent and also have a social life and have a peer group. So that was last Thursday.
I like that, good news.
That's great.
Thanks, Chris. Jean, do you have anything else to say?
Graduation.
So just had a couple of things that I wanted to highlight for you. So as you know, in the sort of district-wide plan, one of the district initiatives is to really work on social emotional learning for our students. So over the past month or so, we've written and received 2 different grants that are going to help us move forward our social emotional learning here at Pioneer. One is an entitlement grant through Title IV, and one was a competitive grant for safe and supportive schools. And through these 2 grants, we're going to be doing a self-assessment of our behavioral health programs here at Pioneer. And there's stipends in the grant for teachers, for parents, for students to come together and complete a tool that the Department of Education has that'll help us really look at comprehensively at our programs and then create an action plan to make sure that we're really meeting the behavioral health needs of our students in grades 7 through 12. So that'll be happening over the next few months. As well as one of the other grants includes stipends for small group of faculty to work with me on that competency-based alternative pathways to graduation. So again, thank you for supporting that, and that work will be happening over the next few months as well. So we have quite a bit of energy and work to become a more, what we call a trauma-sensitive school, and we have a committee working on what we call the resilience model to make sure that students are resilient and able to face and conquer all the challenges that they have with them in coming school ready to learn. So that's one big project we're working on. Another thing we're working on, again related to the district initiative around promoting STEM education, or science, technology, engineering, and math. Our working group in our school that was part of the STEM committee that worked last year to create a STEM plan, which became a STEAM plan, which includes the arts for the whole district. They've been working this year to put together a professional development series for our faculty. So our faculty are about to start a 5-session professional development series. Well, they'll be working in groups to create STEAM integrated units that'll be taught across several different subject areas. So they're about to begin that work together. I'd invite you on the way out to look at the bodies, for lack of a better word, that are in our library windows, and there's a little, there's some information about what that was part of. Our new health teacher, Ernest Abramian, had put those up all around the school and had kids involved in a sort of forensic hunt for the cause of death for these various bodies that were out there. It's related to tobacco use. Yeah, so it's great, and that's an example of arts and science integrating together in a way that's very engaging for students. So I'd invite you to look at those on your way out. The last thing I wanted to mention was that one of our teachers, Penny Betzold, who you saw before when we did our presentation for the graduation requirement request, she's won the Harold Grinspoon Foundation Excellence in Teaching Award for this year.
Wonderful.
So it's a wonderful honor for her and for our school. And so that comes with professional benefits for her, as well as some additional resources for our school. She's been really outstanding in terms of going above and beyond to write grants, to engage our students in outdoor education, to create a boardwalk through our swamp over there, so that students will have better access to the wonderful facilities we have here in terms of our environment and outdoor learning. So congratulations to Penny.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
I have a question.
Sorry.
Well, it's actually, it's in the next, it's under graduation. I don't know if you want to wait and do that under new business.
So we did it.
No, we just did that, we already did that.
No, we didn't.
No,
We didn't.
no, we
No,
didn't.
Actual upcoming graduation.
Oh, that one.
the upcoming
That's what I didn't
graduation.
know.
Can we just do it now?
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can say why not.
It follows.
So it's about graduation this year and the plans, I would imagine, because I think you
Right.
wanted that information. Similar to what you
Planning.
told us last night.
Okay. Yeah, so we're going to have a graduation. It'll be in June. Oh, you mean for the February or for the June?
June.
For the June graduation.
Because you're missing the person who usually organizes all that.
Well,
That's-
she doesn't do it single-handedly. So you know, we're down an administrative assistant at the moment, but the graduation is a collective effort between the two administrative assistants in the office, students from the National Honor Society. There's a whole bunch of people that organize graduation together.
Yeah.
So there's a little committee that last year met to organize all the pieces and make sure that they're all in place. So all that is still going on to organize the.
I didn't realize Cheryl was a big part of that organization for graduation.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I know she helped, but.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We'll be
You
checking.
were going to interview today. Was that interview successful?
We did, Cheryl and I did some interviews yesterday.
Oh, yesterday.
We have
Excuse me.
another one tomorrow. We have some candidates we're interested in bringing back for a second interview,
Nice.
in which I'd like some additional people to also meet them.
Good.
So we'd hope by like mid next week, end of next week, that we'd have
Excellent. That's
somebody
great.
in place.
Nice to know they're out there
Yeah.
and coming to see us.
Yeah.
Super. Is that all, Sharon?
That's it, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
What's
Now,
the date for graduation?
graduation date, June 1st.
Is that first?
June
Oh,
1st.
that's right, it's Friday night.
Heart Committee, is there someone that would like to speak on the Heart Committee? Sue, you, Bob, Bill?
I will. Bill's the speaker director.
Oh, right here. We have Michelle.
Yes, I'd like to update you. We've been here, not everyone
Oh,
being
and
so
Tony.
busy. The Heart Committee has been very busy this fall.
Congratulations, Penny.
Oh, what happened to my sheet?
In front of you, between you and the
Oh,
table.
here it is. Thank you.
Welcome.
We finally finished our RFP, or request for a proposal, as you heard Mike Sullivan speak, and we should begin interviewing our consultants mid-February. So we'd like to invite any of the school committee members who'd like to join that interview, and any teachers also. So we've been meeting every 2 weeks in the Northfield Selectman's office at 6:30. Our next meeting is January 31st. Then it'll be 2 weeks after that, whatever that is. Some of our committee members have been attending the civic leaders meetings in Gil Montague. I reached out to Michael Sullivan when I heard about this grant. And there's one person on our committee who's been attending all their meetings. And then we've had 4 or 5. So we know what they're looking at. We're eager to hear where they're going to spend their money. And if there's any collaboration that we can do with them, we are going to look into that. Also, we have looked at the district agreement. Bob Keir was going to share with you the work his little committee did. So I'm going to pass out the district agreement to you. Obviously, we're not going to read it all tonight. I believe, Ruth, you reached out to Bob earlier in December about the district agreement, so he did go through it. And Tony was on the subcommittee, and we're actually interested, and obviously you're not going to have an answer tonight. We're interested to hear where do you want to go further on this. I mean, I know if we're going to be looking at sharing of services, that brings up a whole can of worms on these district agreements. So we'll be looking forward to hearing back from the school committee. Do you want to say anything about the district agreement, Tony?
Yeah. It was a small committee with Bob and I. And Ruth gave Bob something she got from the state with notations on our district agreement. And we went from there, and first of all, as you all know, our committee started initially as a look at the district agreement. It's beyond that very quickly. And I know our select boards were interested in seeing what progress we've made. I mean, there are a number of household items that were in there, housekeeping items. For instance, this agreement talked about kindergarten through 12. I mean, we now have pre-K through 12. So those are things like that. Reference to junior, senior high, you know, as opposed to middle and high school. Also, one of the things too was, and this I know the school committee has dealt with before, the capital costs and operating costs. That's, I mean, it doesn't, under operating costs, it says things like whatever is the capital cost.
Yeah.
They don't do it, no, it's not very helpful. And we thought that something should be in the district agreement which spells out that more clearly than it is right now. It's not very clear at all. Let's see. Another thing that we came across and was a little surprised at is district agreement says it's intended that all residents of the member towns and grades kindergarten through 6, inclusive, will receive their education in facilities located in their respective towns, except as hereinafter provided. It says, doesn't say they have to be. It's intended. So, you know, that our reading was that there's no requirement that they have to be schooled in their own town. But the intent was there. Another thing talks about schools being students may be reassigned to schools outside their respective towns. When in the judgment of the committee, there is a temporary need to reassign pupils when damage to a physical plan renders a facility unusable. What is that? What does unusable mean? Is it deterioration? What is it? That might come in if, for instance, we talked about perhaps as Mohawk has done and other districts closing schools or schools. It talks about an advisory committee for each town. Now, if we want to keep that, it spells out who would be on this advisory committee. And to our knowledge, there is no advisory committee. And you can read it. You can read it there. Another thing that we came across was, let's see. Oh, in the district agreement. The last time it was anything was done to it, I believe was in 1999. A long time ago. We really felt that it ought to be looked at routinely, a number of years to be determined, but maybe 3 to 5 years to look at it and see if changes need to be made. And that would come from, according to the district agreement, either unanimous to make amendments to a district agreement, majority of the school committee, or 10% of the voters in a particular town. That was another thing that they could bring as far as changes to the district agreement. So these are some of the things that were there. Now, there was a whole part about the law that we don't know anything about. That would be up to you, committee, somebody on the committee to get that all straightened out, the budgets and when it has to be submitted, all that kind of stuff. We don't have the information to deal with that, and that would have to be done through the school committee. But and it's just a draft. These are some of the things we came across. We were putting it off in hopes that we would be further along in our getting it, the RFP, and perhaps there's something that might come from that which would affect the district. We don't know. As we said here, that we'll be hopefully interviewing people here. Oh, one other thing, amendments to the district agreement. It specifies agreement of town meetings. It doesn't specify special or full or annual. And we felt that something like that should not be at a special meeting. It should be done at an annual meeting. Those are some of the things we've come up with. Again, work in progress. We'll have some more information, hopefully, as we look at this whole situation.
And I have 2 more items. We are coming up with a Facebook page. We have come up with a logo. I don't have that. We don't have the finished one. We'll let you know about that. And we're just in the planning stages to host with Palmark what we're calling a summit, a conference, whatever, for the Franklin County school districts. We're going to be having that on March 24th. It's a Saturday at GCC. All school committees, finance, select boards will be invited. We're coming up.
Morning.
Yeah, it's
Morning.
probably going to be between 9 and 12, or 9:30 and 12:30. We haven't decided yet that we want this to be a collaborative, communicative conference or summit or whatever we're going to call it, because it was felt by the Heart Committee that all these grants that the different districts were going for were working in silos. We were not all working together. As you are being faced between decisions with the Del Monte District or Marhart, we feel like we need to be open about this and talk about it. And we hope that with Palmark facilitating the meeting, we can really have some actionable items that we can all move forward on. One thing that we've asked him to do is to give us an update on what the state is looking at for school districts and education. And what he said essentially is what you heard from Steve tonight. There probably will be no more money from the state, but if you come up as a district with creative ideas, they might just give you more money for those, to try those creative ideas. And so I think that's where we're gonna have to think out of the box and be really creative. And maybe we can get some money for our district. So that's what we're hoping for. And Bill and Sue, you're on our committee, do you have anything
That
to
about
add?
covered it.
Okay, thank
Good.
you.
Thank you, yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
No, thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
We'll look it all over.
Okay, on to the other page of our agenda. We got a half done, guys. I mean, better than it might be. So we've gone through graduation 2018 and new graduation requirements for Pioneer. So we've done that. Policy protocol for use of exit interview form. Sue, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, that went to the policy committee tonight and got put on the agenda for the next meeting. So
Right.
we put it on in case we were ready for that tonight, but
Okay.
we'll put that on again.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Number 4, resolve the contradictory advice on subcommittees, quorums, participation in meetings by school committee members, not subcommittee members. David, you were going to check that out.
Yeah, I spoke with Russell today. I was not able to find the email that you were operating off of, which he had provided subsequently, but the issue is in my mind is that on the one hand, he gave advice that subcommittee meetings, that only members of the subcommittee should sit at the table, participate, and at a subcommittee.
Right.
And the underlying danger, if we achieve a quorum, we don't have a posted meeting, we could be in violation of open meeting law. So, as I understand it, Pat, you suggested that, or perhaps he did, that if you know there's going to be a full committee show up, then you post it as a full committee.
Right.
My discussion, I don't think my report's going to close this. We need to hear from him.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I kind of backed him down and said, no, we really need to properly conduct subcommittee meetings with just the subcommittee members at the table, just the subcommittee members being recognized. Members, if they attend, have the same standing as the rest of the public. So that's where we ended up. My concern is that if we, as a contingency, post every meeting as a possible full committee meeting, we're all going to feel like we have to go to every meeting because of what might happen. And further, the public's not going to be served by the fact that the agendas, because remember Russell's argument about, well, if it's organic and it wasn't planned and it just comes up at a meeting, then it's fair game on an agenda. That's a slippery slope too. So I'd like to get it in writing from him. But,
All right,
but I
so
did
we
follow
will-
up and we had a fairly extensive conversation.
So we'll be after that in writing with whatever his decision is. Okay. The next one we have is the discussion regarding moving the 6th grade to Pioneer.
He's not here.
He left already.
He left.
Let's
Okay.
refer that to the hard committee.
Whose recommendation was it?
Okay.
Citizen.
It was
It was a
suggested.
citizen who requested that,
Well, there was just news
yeah.
about Mohawk. Exploring
And his
that, so
rationale
maybe I got
was-
ahead as an idea to look at.
yeah, that the 6th grade, the 5th grade kids now, the parents are thinking that that might be a good fit for them to come over here. Robin?
I just have to say, I've been reading some research about middle school, elementary, upper elementary, high school, just because, you know, it's my business to know some of these things. And the research that's coming out now, that they're looking at what are the best educational and social emotional outcomes for middle school aged students, says that rather than talking about moving the 6th grade up to the middle school, we should be talking about moving the 7th or 8th and or 8th grades back down to the elementary schools. That's much healthier and a better educational and social situation for children developmentally. So this really disturbs me because this is the exact opposite of what the latest research is showing about kids.
And Janie, you had your hand.
I've just, being in my position that I've been in, watching new 7th graders come in every year, I'm finding that each grade is less mature than the one before it. So, and it's a significant amount of lack of maturity.
Yeah, it has to do with social emotional development, cognitive development, and when they transition well, and protective environments for older or middle school students.
By 8th grade, they're doing better.
Right.
I
So
have seen,
yeah.
last year 7th grade and 8th graders this year are a bit more mature.
Yeah, but developmentally, this is what they're looking at, because it's the middle school problem is always a problem.
Another aspect of it, when I was here when he made that suggestion at the budget meeting, I'm not on the budget committee, but I was sitting out there, I thought it was partially in the context of enrollment, perhaps combining schools and closing a school, or am I mistaken about that? I thought that was part of the
that was a
intent.
partial component, and also having the kids exposed to the arts and
Mhm.
athletics.
And more, that's true.
I think
But
those
they're
are
exposed
two,
to
yes.
it.
Wasn't that one of the potential issue, or not issues, but things with the combination of Gil, Montague, and us in tech school? That was one of the options, or one of the things we could research and look at, was combining 6th grade with middle school and
Yeah,
Ch-
Oh, so it was in the context of that as
Well,
well.
I think that's why I started
Intent.
looking
Gil
into
Montague
it. One of the
has
reasons I was
6th grade at their middle school.
But there was one on that, on
Yeah,
that
it's optional.
recommendation.
You're right.
Or not recommendation.
You're right. It was like
Yeah.
one of their proposals of
Yep.
ideas of how
There you
buildings
go.
could be repurposed.
So,
So I said,
So I think we
he
need
backed me
to,
up when I saw that. I got really freaked out about it.
I think we need to,
Research
to
it.
wait,
Right.
yeah, we need to research it and wait until he can be here to speak to it, because he definitely had some concerns. Sorry, I forgot your hand was up. Yes, go for it.
Again, maybe if the principal wanted to speak to this?
Well, I think that the concept is a reasonable concept to discuss. And when you look at curriculum is for grades 6, 7, and 8 at the middle school, but there should be community input, forums.
Oh,
discussion.
yeah, yeah.
This should not be just
More research, yeah.
reaction
Right.
And just think it happen.
Mhm.
I don't think it's for a school committee to work on initially. I think it needs to start from the bottom up, starting with parents and teachers and administration, and then maybe coming to us.
Yeah.
But not,
Teachers
that
and
chain of
administration.
command, I think needs to have it happen. Not educators, we just don't, well, there's a few educators on the board, but not all of us, and I think we need to take our roles, what they are, yes.
But the
high school.
school committee could motivate or get a study or have the administration
Right.
sort of look into this and do a study of some sort and come back and report back to the committee,
Exactly, yeah.
so that you can process that in some meaningful
Right.
way in a meaningful time period.
So maybe we'll wait, yes, Sue?
Well, we have a Heart Committee grant, right, which will be looking at, what does the community want to do to be sustainable and save money in the future, and that's, could be part of the discussion
Exactly.
if people are really interested,
The other one component.
you know.
So
there'll
what
be
do
time
people
to
want
talk
to do
about
with
stuff
this?
like that.
Nothing tonight. We've
Nothing.
already
Yeah.
discussed it.
All right.
I will throw out
Nothing tonight.
Just check off, we discussed.
And I'm just remembering this too. Aren't they actually doing what I just said in a bunch of the Boston schools?
I have no
They're
idea.
actually sending the
Kids
middle
back.
schooler kids back, and they're getting rid of the middle school model.
Let's research it.
Sounds
See.
good to me, yeah. All right, so moving on,
The 7th and 8th.
Administrators and principals?
the newsletters were sent electronically. Staff changes were provided on a sheet somewhere in our
Right here.
file. There are also subcommittee reports. Bill, do you have anything to say about policy tonight?
We worked on the norms and agreed that they come back to the full committee, and worked on some supporting policy changes that are mentioned in the norms.
Sharon, building and grounds.
Building and grounds, we had a quick discussion on the modulars, and we're waiting, or Gail is going to go ahead and get some more quotes on, the care of the records that are over there, because we really can't do anything with those buildings at all until those records are taken care of. We did a walkthrough of Pioneer, it looks great, we're very pleased with that. We've scheduled more meetings and walkthroughs for the future. April and May and...
David, budget.
We've started the budget process. We're going to ask the select boards for a little relief on our deadline for getting an assessment to them. I checked the district agreement. There's no penalty for not. So Ruth sent a letter. I sent to the respective select boards. I sent a clarification just to note that the select boards can't vote to change the district agreement. What they can do is agree one time to give us a little more time. Since Ruth was sick for the last meeting and I came unprepared, it wasn't a very productive meeting, but we will recover from that.
Sue, C&P.
Yeah, we approved the draft of the exit interview protocol and sent it to the policy committee, or I gave it to Bill tonight. Jean came and did a report on the online learning classes that we piloted this year, and gave us some feedback on the number of students, and we had a discussion about how do we evaluate how we're doing with online, and that all high schools that are trying to integrate online into their curriculums are asking similar questions. So we'll stay in conversation about that, and we'll talk again in March. We also requested that the principals in the future come chat with us about math MCAS, because we can see that our scores aren't necessarily where we want them to be. And so we just want to talk more about that and see if there's any support that they need for that. We talked about, Jean did a little update for us on the graduation proposal that we heard tonight. We talked about long-term sub-use and why that was happening in the district. And there were a couple of classes that, for various reasons, the subs are teaching those classes. I don't know if, Jean, you want to clarify that.
One was
was a
sabbatical.
maternity leave that nobody came back, and one was a sabbatical.
Sabbatical, yeah.
Yes. We checked in on the new AP courses that are going well. We talked about some new texts that might be needed for those. We talked about the plan to replace the administrative assistant, which you heard about tonight, and we looked at, for the future, checking in on the piloted PE changes that we had done last spring, and also in the future, the proposal for the C&P committee to coordinate the superintendent evaluation process going forward, just to learn more about it and do the sort of training that the school committee, Massachusetts School Committees offers, and handle that more for the committee, and that's what we did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Martha, you probably can't say a lot, but
I'm so tired.
Yeah, I
It's
can't.
hard to
Negotiations.
Right, I can't say a lot about negotiations, but we have met twice, the subcommittee, and we have another meeting, the next meeting will be February 1st at 7 o'clock. Our first meeting with the union representatives, Education Association, will be on the 5th of February, 5:30. That's different than what it says here, because we changed it, and we'll go from there. We've been looking over ground rules, and we will eventually exchange proposals, but of course, we don't have that yet, and even if we did, I couldn't give you a lot of details. So there.
I wish I had remembered to say the date, but I noticed that the Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools had a workshop or a summit Did anybody see that online or?
March 9th, there's a poverty summit that I registered for.
There's another one that is with no cost on a Saturday morning in Westford. I wish I remembered about it.
The poverty summit's in Worcester.
Okay, yeah, it's
Where'd
not
you
the
see
same
that? All
one,
day,
it's a
and
different
it's during the
one.
week.
It's a, so I'll find what it was and let you know what it was, but it sounded interesting, and it would be fun.
Oh, one of those.
Maybe it's in here. It might be, I really can't remember when it was. But- And the other thing is, Deb, thank you for getting this going. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I didn't actually, well.
Yes, you did, you got it started.
I started it, yeah. I
Thank
thank
you.
Pam for getting it for the entire committee.
Well, thank you. So our next meeting will be here on February 15th in the library. And budget negotiation meetings are listed. And if there's other, I don't think that CMP is meeting any during this time, nor is Building and Grounds.
We're meeting February 6th next.
And then
February
March
6th.
6th. Okay, CMP.
5:30.
CMP is when?
February 6th at 5:30.
And March
Okay.
6th at 5:30.
And Building and Grounds is
4:24, we're gonna have to do it at 6:30 because 7 o'clock is the regular school committee meeting. That'll be in Bernardston with a walkthrough.
Okay.
Ooh, you guys are gonna have to speed to get here.
All right,
Oh, my
so
Fitbit on.
are there any other meetings that we do not have down that we should have? Policy?
PRES at 5:22 at 6:30.
All right.
Building and Grounds walkthrough. That'll
We
take
just
2
set a
minutes.
policy meeting.
How about policy?
It was 5 o'clock, 7 Feb.
At what time?
Se-
On what day?
7th
Okay.
of February.
Yeah.
All right, so hopefully we've got those all down. Yes, David?
There's plenty of coffee left, we could keep going.
In the minutes?
You can, but
Kind of bad. We have to approve the minutes.
Yes.
You help yourself.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Bill.
I know.
Don't
leave yet. I know, I read.
Okay, so we have minutes of, we have minutes of basically the 4th of November, which was our special committee meeting. 14.
Do we have to do them separately?
Yes,
Yeah.
we probably
Okay.
should.
Okay.
We don't have to.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve these.
I move we approve November 14th meeting, special meeting.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Is that unanimous?
I don't know, we were having an important discussion
Yeah, I
over
was-
here, so
Yeah.
I missed it.
I was guilty of distracting.
Okay, all those in favor of approving November 14th meetings, please raise your hand. Okay. One abstention, or was everybody for?
Actually, I got one change. Under X, the search committee,
December?
Minutes.
No, this is November 14th, David.
oh, I'm on December, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right, so that's unanimous. So let's
On
go.
On the 14th, there's one line there, doesn't make sense. Bill moved the motion, Sharon second, Bill withdrew. If I recall, that was all about a motion to move the question,
Yes.
which he withdrew, because that would have taken 2 votes. So just line that one out.
Okay, I didn't do these ones, so
Okay.
Just,
I'll make notes on them. This
Alright.
could be corrected. I actually did minutes for this meeting too, but they had already been done, so
Okay,
there was
so-
some confusion about. I had to watch
So
my
November
thing.
16th, we have draft minutes.
Yep.
I move them as presented.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Is that unanimous?
Yeah.
Robin's abstaining
2
and John's
abstentions.
abstaining? I said aye. I said bye. Have a safe trip tomorrow. Thank you. That brings us to
December 14th.
December 14th.
The only thing there is to take off special meeting, because it wasn't a special meeting, it was a regular
It
meeting.
was a regular meeting.
I mean, that's the only thing I
And
said.
then under Roman numeral X, other, where it says municipal agreement, that should say inter-municipal agreement, and maybe put in the initials.
Where are you?
Other superintendent search.
Roman numeral
Okay,
X.
all right.
So,
Gotcha.
so that was what Gil Montague superintendent was talking about as IMAs, intermunicipal agreements. So
Okay.
just put inter in there.
Okay. All right.
Intermunicipal. Instead of just-
There's no motion on that one.
So we would entertain a motion to accept these as corrected.
I moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That brings us to January.
I have one correction
Was
on
there,
January.
were there any
I
abstentions?
think
No.
Jim and I abstained.
Oh,
January?
Jim or John?
Jim,
Wasn't it Jim? I thought it was Jim, maybe it was John. I
Who
just heard someone's
abstained?
voice over there.
We're gonna have to
For
separate.
December?
Did you
December?
abstain or no?
No.
Oh, I thought you
Just
did.
you.
Sorry.
just Robin.
Sorry, Jim, I thought I heard your voice. Guess I'm just hearing voices and they're
He
Jim's.
abstained from the previous two.
Yeah, I.
January 10th.
Special
Yeah.
meeting.
So this would
Was
be
the
January
special
10th, and that was the special meeting.
Oh, so that should say special meeting?
It's too,
Yep.
you're not even getting my jokes.
I am. And I have one small change on
Okay.
page 2, number 4. The third sentence from the bottom noted that Greenfield instead of is also, it should be saying may be looking.
Okay. Oh, that, for
They
maybe?
They have not looked at it yet.
Okay, maybe.
It'll be a future
Okay.
thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
That was a rumor then.
that was a rumor.
Thank you.
Thank Pam.
Oh,
Okay,
I
so is there a
started it
motion on,
because I
on the
wanted,
10th?
and then Pam
Or you're
thought.
still reading? Okay.
I have a
So-
Motion to accept.
To accept the minutes from January 10th.
Okay, you
Second.
made it? All right, need a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Raise our hands. All those in, Deb,
Oh, yes.
okay. Unanimous.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Okay.
All right, so that was for the 10th.
Future.
Who made the motion?
Bill and I seconded it.
Oh, that was Bill?
My turn a long
I thought Steve.
Right?
Bill must have got it first.
Right, probably. Okay.
Wait, are we voting on
Now we
that?
can go home.
We can't, we adjourned.
All right.
We didn't need a motion.
I can only.
What a
I can
meeting.
only
You're a vote on
do
adjourning?
first, so- Oh, yeah, vote to adjourn.
No, we didn't. We just have a motion to adjourn. We haven't voted on it.
I did, I voted.
I think we should
All right,
rescind.
all right,
I
who made-
think
who made the
people were
motion to
talking
adjourn?
and they didn't see.
I don't know.
Who made the motion? I voted already.
All right, I need a motion and a
Just
second
make
on
it up.
that.
Second it.
We'll say-
Motion.
All right, I'm just
Second.
making a
Vote in
motion.
favor.
No, wait,
I
I think it's unanimous, however.
We have no that stated.
Oh, my God.